It was the summer of 1795, on a small, fog-veiled island off the coast of Nova Scotia, when three teenage boys stumbled upon a sight that would ignite more than 2 centuries of obsession. Daniel McGinnis, a restless young man seeking adventure, wandered the island's thickets when his eye caught something unnatural. An ancient oak tree stood before him, its trunk wide and gnarled, but what drew his attention was the ground beneath it. There, sunken into the earth, was a circular depression, as though the soil itself had collapsed. From a heavy branch above dangled the remains of a block and tackle, long abandoned, weather-beaten, yet strangely deliberate. It did not seem like the hand of nature. It looked like a sign, an invitation, or perhaps a warning. Daniel's curiosity flared, and soon he returned with 2 companions, Anthony Vaughan and John Smith. The 3 boys, armed with little more than shovels and youthful bravado, began to dig into the earth. At first, it seemed like nothing more than ordinary soil, damp and heavy with the island's salty air. But 10 feet down, their shovels struck wood. They uncovered a platform of oak logs, laid neatly across the shaft as though crafted by human hands. A chill ran through them. Someone, long ago, had built this. They pressed on, their laughter giving way to quiet determination. Another 10 feet down, another platform. Then again at 30 feet. Each layer revealed the same, wooden timbers laid with precision. It was no accident. This was a construction, an intentional burial. But why? Who had gone to such lengths to hide something so deep? The boys' excitement grew, and with it came whispers of possibility, pirate treasure, secret riches, gold beyond their imagination. Yet beneath their youthful enthusiasm lurked something else, a rising unease, as if the earth itself was guarding whatever lay below. By the time exhaustion forced them to stop, the boys had uncovered something far more compelling than a simple hole in the ground. They had found evidence of design, an enigma crafted by hands unknown, buried with a purpose lost to time. That night, as the shadows lengthened and the Atlantic wind howled through the trees, the 3 friends could hardly sleep. The image of those oak platforms haunted them. Who had buried them? And more importantly, what treasure, or secret, demanded to be hidden so carefully? The following days brought talk of pirates, for the Atlantic coast had long been a haven for corsairs and privateers. Tales of Captain Kidd, the legendary Scottish pirate, swirled across the colonies. Some whispered that Kidd himself had buried his plunder on the island before his capture. The depression beneath the oak tree, the carefully laid logs, the block and tackle, it all seemed to fit. Others, less superstitious, wondered if it could be the lost wealth of Spanish galleons, plundered from the New World and smuggled north for safekeeping. Whatever the truth, the whole had awoken a hunger. But it was not just a hunger for gold. There was something deeper at work. Even then, in its first discovery, Oak Island was less about wealth and more about mystery. The construction defied explanation. How had such a feat been engineered, on a small, remote island, long before the boys were born? Who had the means and the reason to dig so deep, to lay platforms every 10 feet, and to cloak their work beneath an ancient oak? These were not questions with simple answers, and that was precisely why they lingered. Years later, when John Smith purchased a portion of the island and built a home near the site, he became a custodian of the enigma. The pit drew men like moths to flame, each seeking to uncover its secret. For Daniel McGinnis, Anthony Vaughan, and John Smith, that day in 1795 marked the beginning of a story that would stretch across centuries. They had unearthed not just a hole in the earth, but a wound in history, one that refused to heal. As the first shovels cut into the soil of Oak Island, they did more than uncover buried timbers. They opened the first page of a mystery that would claim fortunes, ruin families, and cost lives. Generations would follow, digging deeper, sinking shafts, building pumps, even sacrificing blood into the depths of the pit. Yet the question remains as haunting now as it was that summer day. Who buried this construction, and why? Was it greed that drove them, or faith, or fear? Was this a treasure chest sealed in earth, or something far more dangerous, something meant never to be found? The boys could not have known that their discovery would spawn legends of a curse, or that it would consume the dreams of powerful men and humble laborers alike. In their youthful eyes, it was nothing more than the start of an adventure. But history would prove it to be much more, a labyrinth of secrets that would grow darker with every foot dug, every man lost, every theory whispered across firelight. And so the mystery begins, not with riches, not with certainty, but with a hole in the earth, a scar beneath an oak tree, guarded by silence, hinting at something vast beneath. A secret so carefully hidden that even now, centuries later, we cannot say with certainty what lies at the bottom. But the promise of treasure and the curse of obsession both began with that single discovery. And once unearthed, the world would never let it go. What kind of secret demand to be buried beneath layers of earth, logs, and stone? What knowledge, or power, was hidden so deep that it required such cunning to protect? The boys walked away that day with mud on their boots and wonder in their hearts. But they had awakened something much larger than themselves. Something that would not rest. Something that still waits, beneath Oak Island, in the dark. It was not just a hole they found that day. It was a story that would outlive them all. Before the first shovels broke the earth of Oak Island, long before Daniel McGinnis ever set foot beneath that ancient oak tree, the island itself had already been wrapped in whispers. Nestled just off the coast of Nova Scotia, within the sheltered waters of Mahone Bay, Oak Island appears at first glance to be unremarkable, a low-lying spit of land draped in evergreens, fringed with rocky shoreline, its soil damp and heavy with salt. Yet those who live along the bay knew there was something uncanny about this place. Its tides were merciless, its fog so dense that ships would vanish from sight within moments. On nights when the wind cut across the bay, the island seemed to moan, a hollow echo of water rushing through unseen channels beneath the ground. Fishermen spoke of strange lights flickering along the shorelines, like phantom lanterns guiding invisible ships. There were stories of men who landed on the island only to vanish without a trace, as though swallowed by the earth. For the indigenous Mi'kmaq people, who had lived along these coasts for centuries, Oak Island was more than a patch of land. Some traditions described it as a place of spirits, a dwelling where the earth itself was restless. Though details differ, the sense of reverence and fear was clear. Few lingered there after dark. Even its geography seemed unnatural. Oak Island is small, only about 140 acres, yet its layout is peculiar. Marshland cuts across its center like a scar, and its beaches are not just sand and stone but contain curious mixtures of gravel and foreign materials, as though altered by human hands. The shoreline is riddled with sinkholes and underground chambers, some collapsing without warning, others hidden just beneath the grass. Locals noted how water on the island seemed to rise and fall in ways no tide chart could explain, as if the island itself breathed. For settlers in the late 18th century, Oak Island was both opportunity and warning. It promised timber, fishing grounds, and seclusion, but it carried with it an aura of secrecy. Strange discoveries had already been whispered about even before McGinnis and his companions began their famous dig. There were tales of peculiar stone markers, half-buried, carved with symbols no farmer could decipher. Some claimed to have found mounds of earth shaped like ancient graves, while others insisted that unnatural lines of stone walls crisscrossed beneath the trees. Whether fact or exaggeration, these accounts painted Oak Island not as untouched wilderness, but as a place long manipulated by hidden hands. When the boys began their excavation in 1795, the locals were not entirely surprised. Many had suspected there was something there, some secret waiting. And when word spread of the oak platforms discovered in the pit, speculation ignited like dry tinder. To those who knew the island's character, it made a chilling sort of sense. If anywhere along Nova Scotia's rugged coast could hide a treasure, Oak Island was the most fitting stage. But there was another layer to this mystique, its location. Oak Island sits along routes once sailed by explorers, traders, and pirates alike. Mahone Bay, with its dozens of islands, offered the perfect refuge for ships looking to disappear. The narrow inlets and hidden coves made pursuit nearly impossible. Smugglers could vanish in its labyrinthine waterways, slipping unseen into the Atlantic when the time was right. If a band of men ever wished to conceal something permanently, Oak Island was the perfect vault. Still, the island seemed to resist intrusion. Every attempt to dig deeper, to force its secrets into the light, was met with frustration. The soil collapsed, water rushed in, tools broke, and shafts caved. The land itself fought back. In later centuries, some would argue that Oak Island's treasure was not gold or jewels at all, but the island itself, a riddle of geology, a natural puzzle mistaken for human design. Yet the sheer strangeness of its features, coupled with the eerie stories passed down, gave it a presence far greater than its modest size. For the three boys, the mystery of the place added weight to their discovery. It was not just that they had found buried timbers, it was that they had found them here, in a place already steeped in legend. Every whisper of pirate hordes, every unexplained light in the night, every Mi'kmaq tale of restless spirits seemed to converge upon this one site, this one hole in the earth. What they uncovered that day was inseparable from the island itself, as if the land had been waiting for them, holding its breath for centuries. In the years that followed, as new companies and adventurers came to Oak Island, they too would remark on the island's strange character. The deeper they dug, the more it seemed that the island itself had been designed, engineered with a purpose far beyond ordinary settlement. Flood tunnels that breathed with the tides, stones carved with symbols, fragments of coconut fibers from tropical shores scattered beneath the soil. It was as though Oak Island had been built to be a puzzle, each piece carefully arranged to confound anyone daring enough to chase its secret. And yet, in this strangeness lies its allure. Had Oak Island been just another patch of rock and soil, the first collapse of the money pit might have ended the story. But the island itself refused to let the mystery die. It seemed to whisper of hidden histories, of voyages across oceans, of treasures buried in the dark. It gave the promise of something larger than life. And once that promise was spoken, it could not be unheard. Oak Island is more than geography. It is a stage. A small island that has played host to centuries of dreams, sacrifices, and obsessions. To stand on its shore is to feel the weight of centuries pressing in, to know that something, or someone, left their mark upon this place. Whether treasure, relics, or nothing more than clever tricks of earth and water, Oak Island continues to pulse with mystery. It was this aura, this sense that the land itself was shaped for secrecy, that set the stage for everything that followed. The first timbers found beneath the oak tree would have been strange enough anywhere. But here, on this island of fog and whispers, they became something more. They became a question too powerful to ignore. And so the digging continued, deeper and deeper, driven not just by hope of gold but by the strange, magnetic force of the island itself. Oak Island was not just a place where a treasure might be hidden. It was a place that demanded it. The summer of 1795 had passed, but the memory of that strange pit beneath the oak tree would not leave the minds of Daniel McGinnis, Anthony Vaughan, and John Smith. Though the boys had uncovered the first signs of something deliberately constructed, oak timbers buried deep within the soil, they were still young and unequipped to take the mystery further. Word spread slowly at first, carried through whispers across Mahone Bay, until it reached the ears of men with more resources and ambition. Soon, curiosity gave way to determination. The hole was no longer the domain of three teenagers. It became a challenge, a puzzle that older, stronger hands felt destined to solve. By 1804, nearly a decade later, the first organized attempt to unearth the pit began. A group of men formed what became known as the Onslow Company, named for the township nearby. Armed with shovels, picks, and sheer determination, they descended upon Oak Island with the belief that they were about to uncover a hidden fortune. They had heard the stories: Captain Kidd's buried gold, Spanish treasure lost to the seas, perhaps even royal jewels smuggled away during some forgotten conflict. To them, the pit was not just a curiosity, it was a promise. At the surface, the work seemed simple enough. They expanded the pit first dug by the boys, removing soil and reinforcing the shaft as they went. But within 10 feet, just as the boys had found, they struck oak timbers carefully laid across the width of the shaft. A platform. With anticipation, they pried away the logs, certain they were about to reach a chest of gold. Instead, more soil. They pressed on. At 20 feet, another platform appeared, oak logs once again fitted together like flooring. Removed. More soil. At 30 feet, the same. It became undeniable. This was no accident of nature. Every 10 feet, a new platform awaited them, a construction so deliberate and uniform that it could not be dismissed. Someone had gone to immense effort to build this shaft, layer upon layer, each sealed with logs. But why bury so much empty earth? Why create such a structure, only to fill it in again? The men began to whisper theories as they dug. Each platform broken and cleared brought the taste of anticipation, a sense that the treasure lay just beneath the next layer. At 40 feet, then 50, then 60, the pattern repeated. Every 10 feet, oak logs. Some platforms also included traces of charcoal, clay, and putty, materials that suggested waterproofing, or perhaps a seal against intruders. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became. This was not a simple burial. This was a vault, carefully engineered, each layer meant to deter, to exhaust, to mislead. By the time the company reached 90 feet, they had labored through months of back-breaking work. Then came the greatest revelation yet. At this depth, their shovels struck not just timber, but a flat stone unlike any found elsewhere on the island. It was rectangular, carved smooth, and marked with symbols none of the men could decipher. Strange inscriptions, geometric shapes, and cryptic markings stretched across its surface. They lifted the stone from the shaft and examined it in the daylight, marveling at the mystery. Was it a warning, a map, or simply a marker that the treasure lay just ahead? Excitement electrified the camp. The men convinced themselves they were on the brink of discovery. Beneath that inscribed stone, the soil was looser, easier to shift, as though it had been disturbed before. Their hearts pounded as the final timbers came into view. 90 feet down, with the weight of generations above them, they prepared for triumph. Chests of gold, priceless jewels, or sacred relics. They believed the reward was finally in reach. But then, in the dead of night, disaster struck. The next morning, when the men descended once more into the shaft, they found water seeping up from the floor. At first, it was a trickle, manageable with buckets. But within hours, the trickle became a surge. The more they bailed, the faster the water came, until the shaft filled completely. 90 feet of hard work swallowed in a flood. Pumps failed. Buckets proved useless. The water was not rain, nor groundwater. It seemed to pour in from the sea itself, as though invisible channels had been waiting for the moment the treasure hunters crossed a forbidden line. Panic spread. Some believed they had triggered a trap, a deliberate defense built centuries earlier. Others feared that nature itself was reclaiming the island, punishing those who disturbed its depths. The pit, once promising, now seemed alive, an adversary determined to guard its secret. The Onslow Company tried to dig secondary shafts alongside the pit, hoping to bypass the floodwater, but each attempt ended in collapse or failure. Water poured into every new hole, rushing in with the same unnatural force. It was as if the island itself had been designed to resist intrusion. Exhausted and defeated, the company abandoned the site, their dreams of treasure drowned in salt water. Yet even in failure, they left behind something vital, the legend of the Money Pit. The story spread beyond Mahone Bay, carried into newspapers and whispered across taverns. A pit filled with oak platforms, cryptic stones, and floodwaters that surged like traps. This was no ordinary treasure hunt. It was a mystery larger than the men who first attempted to solve it. The first organized dig had uncovered no gold, no jewels, no holy relics. Yet in some ways, it had uncovered something more powerful, proof that Oak Island was not ordinary, that beneath its soil lay a design too deliberate to be ignored. The men of the Onslow Company may have left in defeat, but their efforts lit a spark that would burn for centuries. Others would come, armed with stronger tools, better technology, and deeper pockets. Each would believe they were destined to succeed where others had failed. But Oak Island had already revealed its first defense. Whatever lay beneath was guarded not just by layers of timber and earth, but by the sea itself. It would not be given easily, and if it truly was treasure, then its builders had ensured it would never be taken without sacrifice. The money pit had claimed its first victims, not lives, not yet, but hopes, fortunes, and sweat. The question now was no longer whether a treasure existed, but what kind of secret was worth protecting with such cunning and complexity. And more chilling still, how many would fall before the island surrendered its truth? The Onslow Company left Oak Island with no treasure, their shaft drowned by the relentless sea. Yet their failure did not kill the story, it made it stronger. In taverns and coastal villages, people began to speak not only of the money pit, but of the possibility that something darker lay buried within it. The wooden platforms, the cryptic stone, the sudden surge of water from unseen tunnels. These were not the hallmarks of a simple hiding place. They seemed more like traps, the work of minds that wanted their secret never to be uncovered. And that realization gave birth to one of Oak Island's most enduring ideas. The treasure, whatever it was, might be cursed. Rumors spread quickly. The Atlantic coast had long been haunted by tales of pirates, smugglers, and hidden loot. It was easy to imagine Captain Kidd or Blackbeard designing such a pit, lacing it with booby traps to ensure only the clever or the desperate would succeed. Kidd, in particular, loomed large in colonial folklore. Legend had it that before his capture, he buried a hoard so vast that it could never be spent in a lifetime. Some whispered that the inscription on the 90-foot stone, whose symbols no one could read, was a warning: 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. If true, then the treasure at the bottom of the pit was beyond imagination. But if the pit was designed by pirates, it raised a troubling question. Why would men of violence, who trusted only their blades, take the time to build something so complex? Others suggested Spanish galleons, their hulls heavy with plundered gold from the New World. Storms, privateers, or mutiny might have driven such a ship into Mahone Bay, where its crew, desperate to save their cargo, buried it on Oak Island with cunning defenses to ensure it would never fall into enemy hands. The coconut fibers found deep within the pit, a material foreign to Nova Scotia's climate, seemed to support this theory. Had the fibers been carried north from the tropics by sailors desperate to conceal their stolen riches? And yet, even in these early years, a counter-theory began to take shape. Perhaps there was no treasure at all. Perhaps Oak Island was an elaborate trick, a hoax designed to lure fortune-seekers into ruin. Skeptics argued that no sane pirate would bury treasure so deep, with such effort, when the risk of never retrieving it again was so high. Why construct elaborate flood tunnels only to make recovery impossible? Why carve a stone with mysterious symbols if no one could read them? Unless, of course, the point was never to hide treasure, but to create a legend, an elaborate illusion, carefully seeded to ensnare the greedy and the gullible. This idea, that the money pit might be nothing more than a trap of imagination, was unsettling, but it did little to cool the fever. In fact, it may have stoked it further. Because for every skeptic dismissing Oak Island as folly, there were 10 dreamers who believed the skeptics were blind. Human nature has always been drawn to the unknown, and Oak Island offered not just the chance of riches, but the thrill of unraveling a riddle left by history itself. Even failure seemed to confirm that something of value was there, waiting for the right hands to claim it. The whispers of a curse deepened as tragedy and frustration mounted. Workers spoke of the island as if it were alive, determined to fight back. The waters that surged into the pit were not ordinary floods. They behaved with intelligence, rising when diggers pushed too far, retreating when they abandoned the effort. The inscription on the stone became a warning rather than a promise, a signal that greed would be punished. Some began to suggest that the treasure was never meant to be taken, that it was sacred, perhaps even dangerous, hidden by ancient hands to protect the world from its power. It is here that Oak Island's story began to take on a mythic quality. No longer was it simply about gold or jewels. It became about destiny, about whether humans were meant to touch what was hidden beneath the soil. Some whispered of Templar Knights, others of secret societies who buried knowledge too dangerous to reveal. In every telling, the theme was the same. The treasure was guarded not just by timbers and water, but by fate itself. Still, not everyone was convinced by curses and relics. Some practical voices argued that the so-called traps were nothing more than natural geology. The island's limestone bedrock and porous soil could easily create flooding when disturbed. The stone, they claimed, was an invention of storytellers, a piece of local folklore exaggerated with every retelling. But even these skeptical voices could not stop the spread of fascination. The very idea that Oak Island might be a fraud became part of its allure. After all, what is more compelling than a mystery that defies explanation, whether true or false? By the early 19th century, the legend of the Money Pit had outgrown Mahone Bay. Stories of a cursed treasure traveled across Nova Scotia, through New England, and eventually across the Atlantic. Each retelling added details: ghostly guardians, deadly traps, promises of untold riches. The pit became more than a hole in the ground. It became a stage where greed, hope, and fear performed side by side. In truth, the Onslow Company had found no treasure, only berries. Yet those berries were enough to convince the world that something extraordinary lay hidden below. Every platform of logs, every trace of putty or charcoal, every flood of salt water seemed to whisper, "You are close, but not close enough." The pit mocked them, defied them, and in doing so, ensured they could never turn away. It is this tension, between promise and punishment, between fortune and folly, that gave Oak Island its enduring power. Perhaps the treasure was cursed. Perhaps the pit was a trick. But one thing was already certain. Oak Island had claimed its first victims, not in blood, but in belief. And once belief takes root, it is nearly impossible to uproot. The island had set its trap, not of wood or stone, but of imagination. And the world, spellbound, had already taken the bait. By the dawn of the 19th century, Oak Island had already become more than just a patch of wooded land in Mahone Bay. It was a promise. The whispers of buried treasure, the strange structure of the pit, and the possibility of untold riches waiting just beneath the surface had ignited imaginations far beyond Nova Scotia. It was in this charged atmosphere that a group of investors from Truro, Nova Scotia, formed what would become known as the Onslow Company. Unlike the curious young man who first uncovered the pit, these were serious men with resources, determination, and above all, a conviction that they were destined to succeed where others had failed. The Onslow Company arrived with manpower, tools, and an organized plan. They were not treasure hunters guided by folklore alone. They saw themselves as rational men of enterprise, ready to bring science and strategy to a mystery that had so far been approached with little more than curiosity. They believed the island's secrets could be forced into the open, as if sheer will and labor could break through centuries of silence. The pit, they thought, was a problem of engineering, not destiny. Work began with enthusiasm, and the team resumed digging where the earlier discoverers had left off. At first, their progress seemed almost easy, as though the earth itself wanted to encourage their ambition. At intervals of 10 feet, they uncovered the same puzzling wooden platforms, stacked neatly as if placed there to mock them. The platforms seemed deliberate, far too regular and carefully spaced to be natural. Between them were layers of clay, charcoal, and even coconut fibers, strange materials for Nova Scotia soil, hinting that the builders had access to resources far beyond the region. With every discovery, the Onslow Company grew more convinced that great riches lay below, shielded by cunning design. By the time they reached 90 feet, the diggers' excitement had reached a fever pitch. It was here that they discovered the most tantalizing artifact of all, a large stone, roughly 2 feet long, carved with mysterious symbols. None of the men could read the markings, but their imagination did the work for them. The stone was proof, conclusive proof, that the pit was no accident of nature. Someone, centuries before, had left behind a message, a clue perhaps, or a warning. Stories would later circulate that the stone was eventually deciphered, declaring, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. Whether that translation was accurate or not, the men of the Onslow Company needed no further encouragement. Their conviction hardened into certainty. They were standing at the threshold of unimaginable wealth. But the island was not about to surrender so easily. When they drove deeper, reaching approximately 100 feet, their tools struck something solid. The air was thick with anticipation. Was it a chest? The top of a vault? A great cache of treasure at last? Night was falling, and the men, exhausted yet euphoric, decided to leave the final breakthrough until morning. They would return at dawn to claim what they believed was their reward. Morning, however, brought not triumph but disaster. When they returned, they found the pit flooded with seawater, filled nearly to the brim. Every attempt to bail it out failed. No matter how much water they removed, it returned as though the island itself had sprung a leak. It was as if invisible veins connected the pit to the surrounding ocean, ensuring that no man could reach the bottom. The Onslow Company tried desperately to outwit the flood. They built side shafts in an effort to divert the water, believing they could bypass the mysterious system that fed it. But the deeper they dug, the more water poured in, rushing with the force of something designed, not accidental. Each shaft collapsed under the pressure, filling with the same relentless tide. The men began to realize a terrible truth. The pit was not only a hiding place, it was a trap, engineered to protect its secret at any cost. Theories began to swell among the exhausted workers. Some believed the builders had constructed an elaborate system of flood tunnels stretching from the pit to the ocean, carefully designed to flood any attempt at intrusion. The discovery of strange channels lined with coconut fiber seemed to confirm this. But if such a system existed, it was far beyond anything pirates or sailors were thought capable of building. Who could have designed such a marvel of engineering? The question only deepened the mystery. As weeks dragged into months, the Onslow Company's optimism waned. Funds ran low, laborers grew weary, and the pit remained undefeated. Every attempt to drain or bypass the floodwaters ended in collapse and frustration. What had begun as an organized, confident expedition now felt like a battle against the island itself, a battle they were losing. In the end, the Onslow Company was forced to abandon their quest. They left Oak Island with no treasure, only exhaustion and unanswered questions. Yet their failure was not the end of the legend, it was its rebirth. Because what they did find, the platforms, the charcoal, the coconut fiber, the cryptic stone, and most of all, the impenetrable flood, transformed Oak Island from rumor into enigma. They proved beyond doubt that the pit was no accident of nature. Something had been built there, with purpose, with design, and with a determination to withstand the greed of generations. The Onslow Company had uncovered no gold, but they had unearthed something just as powerful: belief. Their story spread far beyond Nova Scotia, carried by sailors, merchants, and adventurers. The money pit was no longer a local curiosity. It was a mystery of international intrigue. And if the treasure had not been found, then surely it still waited, just out of reach, taunting the world to try again. Oak Island had defeated its first serious challenges. But in doing so, it ensured that challenges would never stop coming. The island had made its declaration. Riches might be buried here, but they would not be claimed without a price. Nearly 2 decades after the Onslow Company's retreat from Oak Island, the legend of the money pit had only grown louder, more irresistible, and more tantalizing. The story of the strange stone with its cryptic markings had circulated far beyond Nova Scotia, whispered in taverns, printed in newspapers, and retold by sailors along every coast. For many, the flood that swallowed the pit was proof not of failure, but of sophistication. Whoever had buried their treasure here had gone to extraordinary lengths to protect it. And to men with money and ambition, that level of protection suggested one thing above all: the treasure must be unimaginably valuable. It was in this atmosphere of renewed obsession that the Truro Company was formed in 1849. Unlike the Onslow diggers, who were local men bound together by determination, the Truro Company gathered investors who saw Oak Island as a business venture. To them, the money pit was not just a hole in the ground. It was a potential vault of gold, silver, or priceless relics waiting to be claimed. They pooled resources, hired workers, and brought with them not only picks and shovels, but the conviction that the great mystery could finally be solved. Their arrival on Oak Island marked the beginning of a new chapter. The Truro men were cautious but determined. They studied the accounts of the earlier expeditions, carefully noting the floodwaters, the coconut fibers, the wooden platforms, and above all, the mysterious inscribed stone. By the time they set foot on the island, the stone itself had already become an object of legend. The original Onslow men had taken it from the pit and reportedly displayed it in Halifax, where it was used for years as a doorstop in a merchant's shop. Visitors had marveled at its strange, carved symbols, but no one could agree on their meaning. Some said it was a warning, others a clue. A few believed it was a trap designed to lure men to their doom. For the Truro Company, the stone was more than a curiosity. It was evidence, the most tangible proof yet that something extraordinary lay below. The rumor of its translation had spread widely by then. 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. Whether this interpretation was true or merely the invention of hopeful investors is still debated today. But for the men of the Truro Company, the message rang clear. Riches lay hidden, and they were the ones destined to uncover them. Instead of immediately attempting to dig out the pit itself, they decided on a new tactic: boring. Using an auger, they drilled down into the earth, hoping to penetrate the layers below the flood level and draw up evidence of what truly rested at the bottom. It was a careful, patient approach, less about brute force and more about evidence gathering. The results would both astonish and torment them. At 98 feet, the auger struck something unusual. When they pulled it back, fragments clung to the tool, pieces of oak wood, and beneath that, what appeared to be metal. At 102 feet, they found more timber, but this time, there was also a trace of something far more tantalizing: parchment. Thin, fragile, and inscribed with letters, the scrap was unlike anything they expected to find underground. It was only a fragment, a cruel tease, but to the men of Truro, it was conclusive proof. Someone had hidden documents, treasure, or both within a wooden vault deep beneath the pit. Each boring test seemed to offer just enough evidence to confirm their wildest hopes, yet not enough to deliver certainty. Wood, metal, parchment, all suggested human activity, deliberate construction, and perhaps even chests of valuables. The company imagined vaults filled with gold coins, ancient manuscripts, or priceless jewels, each clue a whisper from below, urging them to keep going. Yet, as before, Oak Island refused to yield easily. Every attempt to dig deeper was thwarted by the same relentless floodwaters that had defeated the Onslow Company. Shafts collapsed, tools were swallowed, and each effort ended in frustration. It was as if the island itself were mocking them, luring them closer with hints of treasure, only to slam the door shut just as their hopes reached their peak. Still, the discoveries of the Truro Company changed everything. The parchment fragment in particular electrified imaginations. What could it have been part of? A letter? A religious manuscript? A royal decree? Theories began to multiply like fire in dry brush. Some believed the pit held the lost manuscripts of Shakespeare, hidden away for safekeeping. Others speculated it was the lost treasure of Captain Kidd, or perhaps the missing jewels of Marie Antoinette smuggled across the Atlantic during the French Revolution. A few even suggested the pit might conceal religious relics, items so sacred or dangerous that their secrecy had to be preserved at all costs. The Truro Company, drained of money and spirit, eventually suffered the same fate as their predecessors. The island took more than it gave. The investors pulled out, and the men left Oak Island without the fortune they had sought. Yet their legacy endured, for their borings had left behind not only evidence but a deeper sense of mystery. They had not struck gold, but they had struck imagination, and once again, the legend grew larger than the island itself. And then there was the stone. The Truro Company had reignited its mystique, but the stone itself would slip away into history. After being used as a doorstop in Halifax, it was reportedly moved, displayed, and eventually lost. Some say it was destroyed in a fire, others that it still lies forgotten in a private collection. The truth of its fate remains as elusive as the treasure it hinted at. What is certain is this: The stone became a symbol, an icon of Oak Island's enigma. Its cryptic symbols embodied everything about the mystery, proof of something, but never enough to explain what. For the wider world, the stone and the parchment were a turning point. They showed that the money pit was not just a legend told by ambitious diggers, but a place of real artifacts, tangible clues buried beneath the soil. Each scrap of wood, each fiber, each symbol carved in stone hinted at a secret so profound it demanded to be uncovered, no matter the cost. But Oak Island had made its rules clear. Every discovery would come at a price. The island would give glimpses, but never gifts. It would whisper its secrets, then seal them away again, daring men to chase shadows through the mud and seawater. The Truro Company departed empty-handed, yet the whispers they left behind echoed far beyond Nova Scotia. The stage was now set for even greater ventures, larger fortunes, and darker sacrifices. The island, patient and silent, was waiting for the next chapter in its long game of seduction and ruin. By the middle of the 19th century, Oak Island had already gained a reputation not just as a site of buried treasure, but as a place of cunning design, a fortress built in earth and stone. The repeated failures of both the Onslow and Truro companies were no longer viewed as mere bad luck. They pointed instead to something deliberate, an elaborate system of defenses hidden beneath the island, created to frustrate any attempt at intrusion. If treasure truly lay at the bottom of the pit, it was guarded not by chance, but by engineering brilliance. The most convincing evidence came from the floods. Time and again, diggers struck water that surged with unnatural force, rising faster than it could be pumped away. This was not ordinary groundwater. It behaved with the rhythm of the tides, rising and falling in perfect sync with the ocean that surrounded Oak Island. Such precision hinted at something astonishing. The pit seemed connected to the sea itself, as though underground channels had been carefully constructed to flood the shaft whenever it reached a certain depth. Theories began to circulate of flood tunnels, man-made conduits stretching from the shores of Oak Island to the money pit. These tunnels, it was said, were not crudely hacked passages, but sophisticated channels designed to draw in seawater through layers of coconut fiber and eelgrass, acting as natural filters. And indeed, when explorers examined Smith Cove on the eastern side of the island, they made a discovery that stunned them. Beneath the sand lay a carefully built structure resembling a box drain. A network of channels, 5 in total, seemed to stretch out into the ocean, each lined with stones and filled with that same strange coconut fiber that had no natural place in Nova Scotia's environment. The implications were staggering. Whoever had constructed the pit had not merely dug a hole and buried treasure. They had engineered a hydraulic trap centuries before modern engineering made such feats common. The tunnels at Smith Cove acted like the lungs of the island, drawing seawater into the pit to drown out intruders. To the treasure hunters of the 19th century, this was nothing short of genius and terrifying. It suggested that the builders had been master engineers, capable of manipulating earth, stone, and water with precision. But who could have possessed such knowledge in an age before industrial machines, before advanced pumps or dynamite? Some speculated it was the work of pirates, but even the most skilled corsairs of the 17th and 18th centuries seemed incapable of creating such an advanced system. Others pointed to the Knights Templar, rumored to have carried their sacred relics and vast wealth across Europe and into the New World. The Templars, it was whispered, had both the resources and the motivation to design a vault that would remain untouchable for centuries. Still others suggested it was the handiwork of Spanish engineers, perhaps hiding the plunder of the New World, or even a lost civilization whose knowledge surpassed our assumptions of history. For the men digging on Oak Island, however, the speculation mattered little. They were confronted with a practical reality. No matter how clever their strategies, the tunnels always won. Every shaft collapsed. Every attempt to bypass the pit ended in defeat. The flood system seemed alive, as if the island itself were conspiring against them. Pumps of every design were brought in, but none could keep up with the sheer volume of seawater. The more they fought, the deeper their despair grew. The brilliance of the design only sharpened the psychological torment. Each discovery confirmed their belief that treasure lay below, Yet each failure reminded them of the overwhelming power of the trap. The coconut fibers unearthed in the drains were carbon-dated centuries later to be hundreds of years old, proof that the system had been constructed long before the modern treasure hunters arrived. The builders had designed something to outlast not only their own generation, but centuries of challenges. For many, this raised unsettling questions. If the vault was guarded with such determination, what exactly was being protected? Was it merely gold and jewels, or something far more significant? Something dangerous or sacred? Why construct an ingenious defense system that required knowledge, manpower, and resources on a scale most believed impossible for the time? Unless the contents of the pit were beyond price. Unless they were meant never to be found. The flood tunnels also transformed Oak Island's reputation in the public imagination. This was no longer simply a tale of greedy fortune seekers. It was a story of human ingenuity, of ancient engineering that rivaled anything in the modern world. It captured the imagination of engineers, historians, and dreamers alike. The island became a puzzle not just of wealth, but of knowledge. To solve Oak Island was to solve a riddle of history itself. Still, for the treasure hunters themselves, these philosophical questions offered little comfort. They bled money, sweat, and years of their lives into the ground, only to be turned back again and again. Each flood, each collapse, each broken shaft drove home the same haunting reality. The money pit was not meant to be conquered by ordinary men, but rather than extinguish the obsession, the traps of Oak Island only fanned the flames. They elevated the treasure from a simple prize into something mythic. If such genius had been used to conceal it, then surely it must be extraordinary. Every failure reinforced belief, rather than destroyed it. The island's defenders had created not only a physical barrier, but a psychological one, ensuring that no matter how many men fell short, others would always take their place, drawn by the irresistible promise of a treasure guarded by brilliance. By the end of the 19th century, Oak Island had become something more than an island. It was a symbol of mankind's eternal struggle with mystery. The flood tunnels at Smith's Cove, the impenetrable defenses beneath the pit, had cemented its reputation as the most sophisticated treasure site in the world. And though the treasure remained hidden, the legend of Oak Island was more secure than ever, locked tight behind walls of water and genius. The stage was set for even greater obsessions, greater investments, and greater risks. For if men could not overcome the traps with shovels and pumps, they would soon turn to new machines, new strategies, and even greater sacrifices. And Oak Island, patient and silent, would be waiting. By the late 19th century, Oak Island was no longer simply a place of promise. It was a place of peril. The pit had defeated every attempt to conquer it, and as the years passed, the cost of obsession began to shift from wasted fortunes to human lives. The island's legend, already steeped in mystery, grew darker. It was no longer just about treasure and engineering genius, but about sacrifice. The money pit had claimed blood. The first recorded fatality occurred in 1861 during one of the many attempts to outwit the flooding tunnels. At that time, a group of determined explorers had resumed work with new machinery, confident that with enough force and ingenuity, they could reach the bottom. Steam-powered pumps were brought in to fight the unrelenting tide of water, and shafts were dug to intersect the pit from different angles. But the deeper they went, the more treacherous the ground became. Timber supports splintered, the earth shifted, and the ever-present water threatened to collapse everything in an instant. It was during one such effort that tragedy struck. A worker, attempting to secure a shaft, was suddenly overwhelmed by the collapse of earth and timber. The pit swallowed him without hesitation, dragging him down into the black waters below. His body was never recovered. For those who stood at the edge of the shaft that day, the reality of Oak Island changed forever. No longer was it just a test of endurance and wealth. It was a grave. The death shook the treasure hunters, but it did not stop them. If anything, it deepened their resolve, as though the sacrifice demanded completion of the quest. There was a sense among some that the island required a toll, that blood must be paid before its secret could be revealed. Such thinking fed into a grim prophecy that began to circulate. 7 must die before the treasure is found. Whether this prophecy originated before the accidents or grew in response to them is unclear, but once it took root, it became inseparable from the Oak Island legend. Through the decades, more lives would be claimed. In 1897, during yet another expedition, an explosion occurred when a pump's boiler malfunctioned. The blast was violent, sending shards of metal and wood flying across the dig site. Several men were injured, and one lost his life in the chaos. The pit, it seemed, did not discriminate. It would take the cautious and the careless alike. The most infamous tragedy occurred much later, in 1965, but it is essential to the island's grim reputation. A group of explorers, part of the Restall family's expedition, were working on a shaft when deadly fumes leaked into the narrow tunnel. Unseen, silent, and merciless, the gases spread quickly. 4 men, Robert Restall, his son, and 2 workers, were overcome and suffocated before help could arrive. Their bodies were later recovered, but the horror of their deaths left an indelible mark on the Oak Island saga. For many, it confirmed what had long been whispered. The island does not give up its secrets willingly, and those who try to force them may pay the ultimate price. With each death, the myth of Oak Island grew more sinister. The island was no longer just a puzzle. It was an adversary, alive in the imagination of those who pursued it. Theories arose that the traps were not merely mechanical defenses but something darker, almost cursed. Some whispered that the builders had consecrated the site with blood, binding the treasure to a destiny of sacrifice. Others claimed that the island itself was haunted, its soil cursed by those who had hidden their wealth there. Even skeptics could not ignore the grim toll. The pattern of accidents, the relentless failures, the ruin of fortunes, all seemed to fit a narrative of doom. And the prophecy of 7 deaths lingered like a shadow. By the mid-20th century, 6 lives had already been claimed. The legend waited, it seemed, for a 7th. Yet despite the risks, men continued to dig. Wealthy investors, professional engineers, and determined dreamers all came, believing they would be the ones to succeed. Each new tragedy became part of the island's lore, a warning to some, but to others, a challenge. If the treasure truly demanded sacrifice, then perhaps their suffering would not be in vain. Perhaps they were participating in a story larger than themselves, a story that stretched across centuries, binding them to the unknown builders who had first carved the pit into the earth. In this way, Oak Island began to resemble less a site of treasure hunting and more a battlefield between human ambition and an implacable mystery. The deaths gave it gravity, a solemnity that made the legend feel sacred and terrible all at once. To some, the sacrifices proved the treasure was real. Why else would so many risk everything, even their lives, unless the promise were greater than the peril? The deaths also gave Oak Island its emotional core. Behind every failed expedition lay not only broken tools and empty pockets, but grieving families, widows, and children left without fathers. The pursuit of treasure was no longer abstract. It was etched into human lives, leaving scars that no amount of gold could heal. Each tragedy added weight to the island's silence, as though the earth itself remembered the toll it had exacted. And yet, as grim as these stories are, they are also what keep the Oak Island legend alive. Without sacrifice, the mystery might have faded into obscurity, dismissed as just another failed treasure hunt. But the deaths gave it permanence. They transformed Oak Island from a curious tale into a saga of human cost, echoing through generations. By the time the 20th century dawned, Oak Island was no longer simply a question of what lies below. It had become a question of what price are we willing to pay to find out. The treasure hunters knew the risks. They knew the island's history of collapse, flood, and death. And still, they came. Because Oak Island, for all its danger, had one weapon more powerful than fear: hope. The sacrifices carved into its history served as both warnings and lures. Each tragedy was a reminder of the pit's power, but also a whisper that something extraordinary was worth dying for. And so the legend endured, darker and deeper, as if the island itself was weaving its story from both triumph and tragedy. As the 19th century turned into the 20th, Oak Island entered a new era, an age when human ambition was fueled not only by dreams but by machines. No longer would men come armed only with picks, shovels, and the strength of their backs. Now they arrived with drills, pumps, engines, and the confidence of a world being reshaped by industry. The rise of industrial power promised that technology could achieve what generations of weary diggers had failed to do. If the treasure had eluded men with bare hands, surely it could not withstand the relentless force of steel and steam. The first signs of this shift appeared in the 1860s and 1870s. By then, treasure fever had spread across Nova Scotia and beyond, attracting investors who saw Oak Island as more than a gamble. It was becoming a proving ground, a place to test whether modern engineering could solve one of history's greatest puzzles. Shafts were sunk deeper than ever before, reinforced with timbers and steel supports, as companies attempted to outmaneuver the flood tunnels. Yet the deeper they went, the more furious the island seemed to resist. Pumps, now powered by steam rather than hand, worked day and night, but the seawater surged back with endless determination. Machines broke down. Timber supports snapped like twigs. Men grew restless, tempers flared, and fortunes drained away as quickly as the water filled the shafts. One of the most ambitious efforts of this period came in 1866 with the Oak Island Association, a company backed by investors determined to outmuscle the island. They dug not only at the pit itself but created auxiliary shafts, crisscrossing the ground in search of a way to outflank the flood system. The effort consumed enormous amounts of labor and capital. Shafts collapsed with terrifying frequency, swallowing machinery and sometimes nearly taking men with it. The island seemed cursed, punishing every attempt to break its defenses. Yet each failure brought new fragments of evidence, more coconut fiber, more layers of timber, more hints of deliberate construction deep underground. Each discovery renewed their hope even as it ruined them financially. In 1893, a new chapter unfolded with the Oak Island Treasure Company. This enterprise came armed with the optimism of the Industrial Revolution and the belief that no problem was too great for modern machines. They used more advanced drilling equipment, boring deeper and with more precision than ever before. What they found seemed to confirm the old stories: fragments of wood, bits of metal, and traces of something that suggested a void or cavity below. In the minds of the diggers, this void was the vault itself, the treasure chamber, untouched for centuries, waiting only for the right hands to unlock it. Yet the island mocked their efforts. Each time they approached what they believed to be the vault, water burst through, filling the shafts and undoing months of labor in mere hours. The machinery that gave them confidence also betrayed them. Steam engines broke down, pumps clogged, drills jammed in the earth. For every new technology they brought, Oak Island seemed to answer with fresh defiance. It was as if the very traps had been designed with future challenges in mind, capable of thwarting even inventions that did not exist when the pit was first dug. But the industrial age brought more than machines. It brought imagination. For the first time, professional engineers and geologists began to study the island, lending scientific weight to the mystery. Some concluded that the flood system was too deliberate to be natural. Others speculated that the pit itself was not merely a treasure vault but a decoy, hiding something of far greater significance. Theories flourished: that the island contained lost manuscripts from the Old World, that it concealed the treasure of the Aztecs or the Spanish crown, or that it was the final resting place of sacred relics hidden by the Knights Templar. Each theory only added fuel to the fire, ensuring that money and manpower continued to flow toward the cursed ground. By the close of the 19th century, Oak Island had become an obsession of international scale. Newspapers reported on each attempt, sometimes with sympathy, often with ridicule. The public watched with fascination as wealthy men lost fortunes and poor laborers risked their lives for promises that never materialized. To many, Oak Island was a cautionary tale of greed and folly. To others, it was proof that the treasure must be real, for why else would so many respectable men persist in chasing it? The age of industrial ambition left the money pit scarred and broken, its ground riddled with shafts, its surface cluttered with the remnants of failed machinery. The land looked less like an island of secrets and more like a battlefield between man and earth. Yet beneath the destruction, the pit remained undefeated. The treasure, if treasure there was, remained hidden, as though mocking the very idea that human ingenuity could overcome ancient cunning. Still, this age was critical in shaping Oak Island's legend. It transformed the story from a local curiosity into an international spectacle, a drama that played out in newspapers, investment meetings, and the imaginations of those who believed. The failures of the industrialists did not kill the legend, they cemented it. For now, Oak Island was not only the site of hidden wealth, but the stage for humanity's eternal struggle against mystery itself. And though machines had failed, the dream only grew stronger. For if the industrial age could not break Oak Island, then perhaps something else could. Greater science, greater wealth, or perhaps sheer destiny. The island had resisted every hammer, every pump, every drill, but it had not extinguished hope. Instead, it whispered a new challenge, that the next century, with all its wonders, might finally unlock its secret. As the 19th century gave way to the early 20th, Oak Island's legend began to take on a new dimension. It was no longer merely about strange flood tunnels and stubborn earth. It was about myth, faith, and the tantalizing possibility that the pit concealed not just gold, but the very keys to hidden chapters of history. For those who had poured fortunes into the island, the question was no longer only is there treasure, but rather what kind of treasure could be so carefully hidden, so ferociously defended, that it has outlasted generations of seekers. Among the most enduring theories was that of the Knights Templar. This mysterious order, dissolved by the Pope in the early 14th century under charges of heresy, had long been rumored to have spirited away their immense wealth before their downfall. Some legends claim they fled with sacred relics, the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, or ancient scrolls containing forbidden knowledge. Could it be that the Templars, masters of secrecy and underground engineering, had crossed the Atlantic centuries before Columbus, burying their sacred hoard in the New World? The discovery of coconut fiber, foreign to Nova Scotia, and stone markers with strange symbols gave weight to this possibility in the minds of believers. Others insisted the treasure was the loot of pirates, buried during the golden age of the seas. The name most often whispered was Captain William Kidd, the infamous privateer-turned-pirate who was executed in 1701. His rumored hoards have never been found, and Oak Island, with its labyrinth of tunnels and hidden chambers, seemed a fitting place for a man who lived in shadows. The idea thrilled imaginations. What if the legendary wealth of the Caribbean's most feared pirate lay beneath the soil of a quiet Canadian island? For those seeking romance and adventure, this theory was irresistible. Still others proposed a Spanish connection. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Spanish galleons laden with treasure sailed regularly from the New World to Europe. Many were attacked, sunk, or forced to conceal their riches on remote shores. Perhaps a desperate crew, seeking safety, had concealed their cargo on Oak Island. The intricate engineering of the pit, however, suggested a design far beyond the hurried burial of sailors. Something more deliberate, more secretive, seemed at work. What fueled these theories most was not proof, but fragments, clues that seemed designed to tantalize. Strange stones carved with markings no one could quite decipher. Layers of oak timber buried far deeper than seemed natural. Traces of metal found in drillings, sparking whispers of coins, jewels, or perhaps ancient artifacts. Each discovery was enough to ignite a fresh wave of speculation, though never enough to confirm the truth. The island seemed to thrive on ambiguity, offering just enough to sustain faith while denying final answers. The Templar theory, in particular, captured imaginations because it offered not just riches but revelation. If the Templars had buried their relics on Oak Island, then the pit was not simply about wealth, it was about history itself. To unearth the Grail or the Ark would be to rewrite the story of faith, power, and civilization. In this light, Oak Island became not just a treasure hunt but a spiritual quest, one that mingled destiny with greed. Each failed expedition seemed to echo with the question, was the treasure protected not by traps alone, but by fate? Skeptics, however, scoffed. They argued that the pit was nothing more than a collapsed sinkhole, that the supposed engineering was the product of natural forces. They pointed to the financial ruin of company after company as evidence not of a curse, but of folly. Yet even the skeptics could not dismiss the allure of the discoveries, the fibers, the timbers, the carved stones. If it was all natural, why did nature seem to conspire in so mysterious a fashion? Theories of pirate gold and Templar relics played into something deeper, the human hunger for stories. For centuries, tales of lost wealth and secret societies had enthralled audiences. Oak Island provided a stage on which those tales could come alive, a mystery that seemed to fuse the legends of Europe with the frontier of the New World. Investors and adventurers alike were driven less by logic than by the poetry of possibility, the dream that beneath their feet lay not just treasure, but proof of the extraordinary. By the early 1900s, Oak Island was no longer only a place. It was an idea, a legend that belonged to the world. Newspapers carried headlines that played up the pirate angle, with illustrations of chests overflowing with gold. Writers speculated about Templar voyages across the Atlantic, connecting the dots between medieval Europe and the quiet shores of Nova Scotia. The island had become a canvas onto which society projected its deepest fascinations: wealth, mystery, forbidden history, and the possibility of rewriting what we thought we knew. And yet, with each new expedition, the island yielded the same cruel pattern. Hints and fragments stirred hope, then disaster struck. Money drained away, shafts collapsed, and the prize retreated once again into the depths. Like a phantom, it was always close enough to imagine but never close enough to seize. Theories multiplied because they had to, for without them, the endless failures made no sense. The treasure was too persistent, too carefully hidden, to be a mirage. If men had bled and died for it, surely it must exist. The theories themselves became part of the treasure. Believers did not need to see the gold. They needed only to believe that somewhere in the darkness, beneath the stubborn clay and seawater, something of immeasurable worth awaited. Whether it was the fortune of a pirate, the relics of a sacred order, or the spoils of an empire, Oak Island had transformed from a patch of earth into a mirror of human imagination. And so, by the dawn of the 20th century, the island stood at a crossroads. It had resisted the efforts of ordinary men, humbled the machines of industry, and absorbed the wealth of investors. Yet its legend was more alive than ever, enriched by the possibility that beneath its soil lay the very secrets of history. To dig on Oak Island was no longer just to seek treasure. It was to chase destiny, to pit human ambition against the possibility of the impossible. For decades, Oak Island had seemed merely stubborn, an enemy of fortune, a destroyer of dreams. But as the 19th century unfolded into the 20th, the island began to take on a darker character. It was no longer only about money lost or shafts collapsing. Now, whispers of a curse surrounded the island, a curse said to demand blood for every attempt to unearth its secret. And soon enough, the ground itself seemed to answer those whispers with tragedy. The first recorded death came in 1861, during the efforts of the Oak Island Association. A boiler exploded as the team struggled to pump out water from one of the flooded shafts. The blast sent shrapnel flying, scalding men with steam and flames. One worker died instantly, and others were badly injured. To those watching, it felt like more than just an accident. After all, countless shafts had flooded, countless timbers had collapsed. Yet until then, no life had been claimed. Why now, when men had drawn closer than ever to what they believed was the treasure chamber? For many, it was proof that Oak Island was no ordinary ground, that it guarded itself not only with water and traps, but with death itself. The tragedies did not end there. In 1897, tragedy struck again when a man named Maynard Kaiser was working in a shaft. The ropes supporting him slipped from the pulley, and he fell to his death in the darkness below. His body was crushed beyond recognition, retrieved only after great difficulty. Onlookers spoke in hushed voices, some openly suggesting that the island had claimed another life as payment. The myth of a curse was beginning to solidify into something darker, an expectation. By the 20th century, the curse had become part of the law. Every expedition that followed was shadowed by the belief that the island would demand sacrifice. In 1909, even Franklin Delano Roosevelt, long before he would become President of the United States, took an interest in the mystery. He joined a syndicate of treasure seekers, investing money and imagination in the dig. Though he never worked the shafts himself, Roosevelt followed the project closely, fascinated by both the promise and the peril of Oak Island. Some would later speculate that even a man destined to guide America through depression and war had felt the pull of the island's cares. The deadliest tragedy came in 1965, when 4 men working on a shaft were overcome by noxious fumes. The first worker collapsed deep underground, and 3 others rushed in to save him, only to fall victim themselves. All 4 perished in the suffocating darkness, their bodies retrieved only after hours of dangerous effort. The island had claimed multiple lives in a single day, and with that, the legend of the curse became undeniable. Families wept, investors withdrew, and locals shook their heads in sorrow. The mystery of Oak Island was no longer only about treasure. It was about the lives it had taken, the price it seemed to exact from those who dared disturb it. Some said the deaths were no coincidence. They believed the original builders had woven not only traps of wood and stone, but traps of fate. Ancient knowledge, they argued, had been poured into the island's defenses, knowledge designed to punish any who came too close. Perhaps it was divine judgment, protecting relics too sacred for human hands. Perhaps it was something darker, a curse bound to the earth itself. Skeptics argue that accidents were inevitable in dangerous, poorly reinforced shafts filled with water and gas. But the skeptics could never explain why. Again and again, the tragedy struck just when treasure seemed almost within reach. In taverns and kitchens across Nova Scotia, the story spread. Children whispered that the island was haunted. Old fishermen swore they would never set foot near the pit after sundown. And soon, a prophecy emerged, that 7 men must die before the treasure could be revealed. No one could say where the prophecy came from, but it began to circulate widely, passed from mouth to mouth like a warning. Already, half that number had perished. Each new expedition was followed with a grim undercurrent. Who would be next? The belief in the curse gave Oak Island a new, almost supernatural aura. It was no longer just a test of engineering or wealth. It was a test of destiny. Those who continued to dig were not merely adventurers or investors. They were challengers of fate, daring to defy a warning written not in ink, but in blood. Every sound of a collapsing shaft, every groan of the timbers underground, every hiss of water filling the tunnels carried with it the echo of death. The island was alive in the minds of those who worked it, breathing and watching, waiting for the next sacrifice. And yet, despite the tragedies, the lure of the treasure remained irresistible. For each man who died, another seemed willing to step into his place. Fortune, history, or glory, whatever lay beneath the surface was powerful enough to outweigh fear of the curse. The island became both a graveyard and a beacon, drawing the hopeful and the reckless alike. By the time the curse had claimed its victims, Oak Island was no longer merely a puzzle of wood and water. It was a legend of flesh and blood, of men who had given their lives for a dream they never lived to see. Their deaths were woven into the story, adding weight to the mystery and solemnity to the chase. To seek treasure on Oak Island was to walk with ghosts, to feel the presence of those who had dug and drowned, burned and suffocated, all in the name of a secret that refused to reveal itself. The curse had given Oak Island its darkest layer of meaning. It was no longer simply a test of human ambition, but a warning that some secrets are meant to remain hidden, and that those who defy them pay the ultimate price. Yet even in the face of death, the island continued to whisper. For every grave dug into its soil, a new theory, a new hope, and a new expedition would rise. The question was not if more men would come, but how many more lives the island would claim before its secret was laid bare. As the world marched into the first half of the 20th century, Oak Island found itself overshadowed by storms of far greater scale. The 2 world wars reshaped nations, consumed resources, and redirected human ambition towards survival rather than discovery. Yet even in these turbulent years, the island's legend did not fade. Instead, it slumbered, gathering strength in silence, waiting for the world to once again look its way. During the First World War, Digging on Oak Island nearly ceased. Men who might have taken picks and shovels to the money pit were instead conscripted, sent across oceans to fight in muddy trenches. Investors who once speculated on treasure now turned their fortunes toward weapons, ships, and armies. Oak Island lay quiet, its shafts filling slowly with water, its scattered timbers rotting in the salt air. The pit seemed to breathe in the silence, like a beast biding its time while humanity fought battles of its own making. When the guns finally fell silent in 1918, the world emerged changed, and so did Oak Island's place within it. The island had become more than just a mystery. It was now a link to a more romantic past, a reminder of secrets untouched by the mechanized brutality of war. For some veterans returning from the trenches, Oak Island was more than a legend. It was hope. To believe in hidden treasure was to believe that life still held wonder after so much senseless death. But the interwar years were marked by financial upheaval, particularly the Great Depression. Treasure hunting required investors, and investors were scarce when breadlines stretched through cities. Still, whispers persisted. Local papers continued to publish accounts of the island's history, retelling the discoveries of coconut fibers, timber platforms, and mysterious stones. Each retelling seemed to make the story richer, sharper, more irresistible. Though the world was focused on survival, Oak Island's myth remained like an ember in the ashes, ready to spark again. World War II cast an even darker shadow. Nova Scotia, with its vital shipping lanes, became a critical part of the Allied war effort. German U-boats prowled the Atlantic, and fear spread that the war might come even to Canadian shores. Once again, Oak Island lay dormant. Its flooded shafts became brackish pools where birds gathered. Its once busy clearings grew thick with grass and weeds. Yet even in the darkness of war, the island found a strange place in the imaginations of some. Rumors spread that the Nazis, obsessed with the occult and ancient relics, knew of Oak Island. After all, if they scoured Europe for the Ark of the Covenant and the Spear of Destiny, why not cast their eyes across the ocean? Though no evidence exists that Hitler's agents ever set foot on Nova Scotia's shores, the possibility was enough to fuel decades of speculation. The war years created a hunger for stories of hope and mystery. Soldiers returning home sought meaning beyond the battlefield. Families mourning their dead yearned for legends that reminded them the world was still filled with wonder. Oak Island, untouched and eternal, became a symbol of that yearning. If the treasure was real, it meant there was still magic left in the world, still secrets waiting to be uncovered in an age that seemed determined to destroy beauty. During these years, the curse of Oak Island also deepened in the public consciousness. The idea that 7 men must die before the treasure could be revealed gained traction, whispered like prophecy. Death had become universal during the wars, and the thought that the island demanded sacrifice seemed hauntingly believable. In a world where millions had perished, why should Oak Island's curse not also run its grim tally? As peace returned after 1945, the island once again beckoned. With economies recovering and industries booming, new generations of investors looked toward Oak Island not as a frivolous gamble, but as a challenge worthy of the modern age. The pause of war had not killed the legend, it had preserved it. The island, untouched for years, now seemed fresher, more mysterious, as though its secret had only grown deeper in the silence. And so, as the war years faded into memory, Oak Island stood like a survivor itself, scarred by past attempts, shadowed by tragedy, but undefeated. The great conflicts had diverted men's attention, but the island had not been forgotten. If anything, its silence had amplified its call. For when the world had been consumed with fire and blood, Oak Island had remained steadfast, holding tight to its enigma. Now, with peace returning and a new technological age dawning, the question was no longer whether men would return to the money pit. The question was when, and with what new tools and theories they would challenge the island once more. The wars had proven humanity's capacity for destruction. Would the post-war years prove its capacity to unlock one of history's greatest mysteries? Oak Island had slept through the thunder of cannons and the rise and fall of empires. Now it was ready to wake, to test whether the modern world, with all its machines, wealth, and ambition, could succeed where centuries of dreamers had failed. As the world stepped into the mid-20th century, Oak Island's legend returned with renewed force. The silence of the war years was broken, and once again men with money, machines, and ambitions set their sights on the island. But this time, the stakes were greater than ever. It was no longer about a handful of local diggers or small associations pooling their resources. Now, Oak Island drew the attention of powerful investors, wealthy dreamers, and businessmen willing to risk their entire fortunes for the chance to unlock its secret. The island by now had an aura all its own. It was not simply a place on a map. It was a myth made tangible, a story that consumed those who touched it. Every new investor came with two beliefs. First, that he would succeed where others had failed. Second, that his destiny was tied to Oak Island in ways others could not understand. These men did not see themselves as gamblers. They saw themselves as chosen. And yet, history would treat them no differently than the many who had come before. In the 1950s, the Restall family arrived. Led by Robert Restall, a determined and resourceful man, the Restalls devoted their lives to solving the island's puzzle. Robert brought his wife and children to live on Oak Island, turning the pursuit of treasure into a way of life. For years they toiled, uncovering shafts, documenting clues, and battling the same relentless floods that had plagued every generation of seekers. Unlike many before them, the Restalls believed in method, patience, and perseverance rather than brute force. They catalogued their findings with care, convinced that a disciplined approach could succeed where money and machinery had failed. But Oak Island demanded its price. In 1965, tragedy struck when Robert Restall was overcome by poisonous fumes in a shaft. His son, his partner, and another worker rushed in to save him, only to collapse themselves. 4 men died in a single, harrowing moment. The dream of the Restalls ended in grief, and Oak Island claimed another chapter of blood for its cares. Investors and locals alike were shaken. The legend of the prophecy, that 7 lives must be lost before the treasure was found, seemed closer than ever to fulfillment. Yet the deaths did not deter others. In the aftermath, a wealthy businessman named Daniel Blankenship stepped into the story. A man of fierce determination and stubborn will, Blankenship devoted decades of his life to Oak Island. He invested not only his money but his very identity into the chase, becoming one of the island's most iconic figures. Where others had given up, Blankenship doubled down, convinced that every fragment of evidence pointed toward a grand design beneath the earth. To him, Oak Island was not only a mystery but a calling. Blankenship's era ushered in a new kind of struggle, not only against the island itself but against financial ruin. Treasure hunting was expensive, and Oak Island was merciless in swallowing funds. Investors poured in capital, machinery, and manpower, only to watch it vanish into the flooded shafts and collapsed tunnels. Time and again, fortunes were lost in pursuit of the unseen. Lawsuits erupted between partners, friendships dissolved under the strain of debt, and reputations were broken as quickly as timbers in the pit. The public, too, was drawn into this drama. Newspapers and television reported on the efforts of each new company, often framing Oak Island as both thrilling and tragic. For some, it was entertainment, a story of hubris and obsession played out against the backdrop of a cursed island. For others, it was inspiration, proof that some men still dared to chase the impossible. Either way, Oak Island had become larger than itself. It was now a stage on which human ambition clashed with mystery, and the audience was the world. What made this era so compelling was the scale of the risk. No longer were men digging with spades and pulleys. Now they brought bulldozers, drills, pumps, and reinforced shafts. They poured hundreds of thousands, later millions, of dollars into the ground. Each venture seemed poised to succeed, backed by modern technology and driven by relentless will. Yet each ended the same way, with water flooding back in, with machinery breaking down, with investors staring at empty hands and empty pockets. The more the island consumed, the more its legend grew. If men could lose everything and still return to dig again, surely the treasure was real. No one would risk so much for fantasy. And so the cycle fed itself. Each fortune lost was another stone laid upon the altar of Oak Island's myth. For those who stood on the sidelines, Oak Island became a cautionary tale of obsession. Families torn apart, lives lost, fortunes squandered, all for something that might not even exist. Yet for the men at the center of the storm, none of that mattered. They believed, and belief, when tied to destiny, was stronger than reason. By the 1970s, Oak Island had become synonymous with high-stakes risk. Investors came and went, each convinced they would be the one to break the curse. Each walked away poorer, some broken, some ruined, and yet the island remained untouched, its secrets still buried beneath layers of clay, stone, and seawater. The tragedies and financial collapses of this era did not weaken Oak Island's legend. They strengthened it. For every failure proved that the treasure must be vast. Why else would men give so much, lose so much, and still return? The curse was not only of death, but of desire itself. Once a man set foot on Oak Island with hope in his heart, he was forever changed. He could leave the island, but the island would not leave him. Oak Island had always tested human ambition. Now, in the modern age, it tested human wealth and pride as well. Men risked not only their lives but their legacies, convinced that beneath the island's soil lay a prize worth any cost. And as each fortune fell, the legend of Oak Island became not a tale of treasure found, but of treasure forever out of reach, glimmering just beyond the grasp of even the most determined dreamers. In the 2000s, Oak Island entered a new era, driven not by small-time diggers or shadowy investors, but by a pair of determined brothers from Michigan, Rick and Marty Lagina. Unlike many who had come before, the Laginas combined ambition with meticulous planning, blending engineering insight, historical research, and modern technology. They approached the island not as a gamble, but as a mission, an opportunity to solve a centuries-old mystery that had consumed countless lives and fortunes. Rick Lagina, a retired postal worker with a passion for puzzles and history, had long been fascinated by Oak Island. His curiosity was matched by his younger brother Marty, an engineer with a knack for problem-solving and a relentless drive to uncover the truth. Together, they formed a partnership that balanced imagination with practicality. Unlike previous treasure hunters who often relied on brute force or blind optimism, the Laginas focused on methodical exploration, careful documentation, and the intelligent use of machinery. Their approach signaled a new phase in the saga of Oak Island, one that combined the legend's mystique with the tools and strategies of the modern age. The brothers quickly realized that Oak Island could not be conquered by muscle alone. To navigate the pit's infamous flood tunnels, they brought in advanced pumps, sonar technology, and engineering techniques far beyond what 19th-century adventurers could imagine. They mapped the island with precision, studying aerial photographs, drilling samples, and tracing the patterns of the mysterious water channels. Each new piece of evidence was catalogued, photographed, and analyzed, creating a meticulous record that would guide every decision. From the outset, the Laginas were fascinated not only by the money pit itself but by Smith's Cove, the site of the legendary flood tunnels. Early expeditions had revealed box drains, coconut fiber, and stone structures pointing to sophisticated engineering. Rick and Marty brought in divers and remote-operated cameras, exploring submerged tunnels with modern technology. What had once been a deadly hazard now became a treasure trove of data. Each layer they uncovered seemed to confirm that the pit was far more than a simple burial site. It was a fortress, a puzzle designed to resist discovery for generations. The Laginas also took a historian's approach. They delved into centuries of documentation, searching for patterns in the reports of previous explorers. Diaries, letters, maps, and newspaper articles were cross-referenced with modern surveys of the island. They examined evidence that had been dismissed in the past, such as the presence of ancient coins, lead cross pieces, and remnants of metal that could not be immediately identified. Every artifact was treated as a potential clue, a fragment of a story that had begun long before any of them set foot on Oak Island. As the Laginas' efforts gained momentum, the world began to watch. Their journey was documented on television, allowing audiences across the globe to witness the triumphs, failures, and moments of tension that defined Oak Island. Unlike earlier attempts, the Legina's work was transparent. Every discovery, setback, and revelation broadcast for public scrutiny. This added a new layer to the legend, transforming the island into not just a site of mystery, but a shared cultural experience. People no longer merely read about Oak Island. They watched it unfold in real time, feeling the suspense, fear, and hope alongside the brothers. One of the most compelling aspects of the Legina's approach was their respect for the island's history. They were careful to document and preserve everything they uncovered, understanding that Oak Island was as much a historical puzzle as it was a potential treasure trove. This respect allowed them to approach the site with a combination of caution and ambition, mitigating some of the risks that had claimed lives in previous generations. Safety protocols, advanced equipment, and a methodical plan distinguished them from earlier expeditions that had relied on sheer determination alone. Despite their modern tools, Oak Island remained as elusive as ever. Flood tunnels continued to frustrate attempts to reach the pit's depths, and hidden chambers remained stubbornly concealed. Yet the Legina's persistence brought fresh hope. Each discovery, no matter how small, a fragment of timber, a metal nail, or a trace of coconut fiber, was celebrated as a step closer to unraveling the island's secrets. The painstaking work of excavation, surveying, and historical analysis combined to create a narrative that was both scientific and deeply human, highlighting not only the mystery of the island but the passion of those who sought to solve it. The brothers' story also emphasized the emotional stakes of Oak Island. They were not driven solely by potential wealth, but by legacy, curiosity, and the desire to honor the countless seekers who had come before. They frequently reflected on the lives lost, the fortunes squandered, and the generations consumed by obsession. For Rick and Marty, Oak Island was a continuum, a puzzle that connected the past to the present, linking them to figures from centuries ago whose names had been almost forgotten. Each artifact they uncovered, each tunnel explored, served as a bridge between history and the human desire for discovery. By the mid-2010s, the Laginas had transformed Oak Island into a living laboratory of history, engineering, and adventure. Their efforts demonstrated that with modern technology, careful planning, and unwavering dedication, the mysteries that had thwarted so many could still be approached, and perhaps solved. Yet Oak Island continued to guard its ultimate secret. The Money Pit, Smith's Cove, and the countless tunnels beneath the island remained as impenetrable as ever, a testament to the ingenuity of its original architects. The rise of the Lagina brothers represents a turning point in Oak Island's story. For the first time in centuries, the pursuit of treasure combined rigorous methodology with emotional resonance. Theirs is a tale of courage tempered by intelligence, of ambition balanced with respect for history, and of hope sustained in the face of relentless mystery. Oak Island, with all its danger and intrigue, had finally found seekers who embodied the spirit of both the past and the present, a new generation willing to challenge the unknown while honoring the legacy of those who had come before. And yet, as with every chapter of Oak Island's long history, the ultimate question remained unanswered. Beneath the layers of clay, timber, and seawater, the island's greatest secret waited. Was it pirate gold, Templar relics, Spanish treasure, or something beyond imagination? A prize that transcended wealth entirely. The Lagina brothers' journey suggested that Oak Island's story was far from over. With each pump of water, each measured excavation, and each careful analysis, the island continued to weave its spell, reminding the world that some mysteries are eternal, and some treasures, real or imagined, demand patience, courage, and the willingness to risk everything. As the 21st century progressed, Oak Island became a frontier not just of history and legend, but of technology. The tools available to modern explorers transformed the way the island was studied, offering insights that earlier generations could only dream of. For the Lagina brothers and their team, these breakthroughs were more than conveniences. They were keys that might finally unlock a mystery centuries in the making. One of the most important advancements was the use of high-resolution ground-penetrating radar, GPR. Unlike traditional digging, which often destroyed fragile evidence or led to collapsed shafts, GPR allowed the team to scan the island's subsurface without immediate excavation. Through radar, anomalies in the Earth could be mapped, suggesting the presence of voids, timber structures, or even metal objects buried deep below. Each reading offered tantalizing possibilities. Was it part of the infamous money pit, a hidden tunnel, or simply a natural formation? The technology gave the team a new way to interpret Oak Island's complex underground architecture, and every scan produced questions that demanded answers. In addition to radar, the team employed advanced drilling techniques, allowing them to extract coarse samples from deep beneath the surface. These samples revealed layers of clay, timber, and sediment that told stories of centuries past. In some cores, traces of coconut fiber, a material foreign to Nova Scotia, appeared, reinforcing theories that Oak Island had been intentionally engineered. Small fragments of metal, some corroded beyond immediate recognition, were carefully catalogued and analyzed. Each sample, no matter how minute, became a clue in a puzzle that had eluded the greatest minds for generations. Smith's Cove, the site of the legendary flood tunnels, also benefited from technological innovation. Remote-operated submersible cameras allowed exploration of submerged channels that had previously been too dangerous for human divers. Through these cameras, the team observed complex wooden structures, layers of rock, and signs of construction far more sophisticated than previously imagined. It became clear that the builders had possessed knowledge of engineering principles that seemed centuries ahead of their time, deepening the mystery of who had constructed the tunnels and why. Advanced metal detection and magnetometry further enhanced the search. By scanning for anomalies in the Earth's magnetic field, the team could identify areas where metallic objects might be buried. Findings included fragments of lead, gold-plated pieces, and items that could not immediately be classified. While none of these discoveries confirmed the presence of a treasure vault, they hinted at deliberate human activity, lending credence to centuries of speculation. Beyond machines, modern computing and data analysis transformed the investigation. Patterns from historical documents, previous drilling reports, and modern scans were cross-referenced in ways impossible for 19th-century treasure hunters. Algorithms helped the team predict potential locations of shafts or hidden chambers, and digital mapping created a comprehensive record of the island's known and suspected features. By combining historical research with cutting-edge technology, the Lagunas were bridging past and present, creating a methodical approach to a mystery that had often been treated as a gamble or superstition. Even the team's excavation strategy evolved. Modern pumps and reinforced shafts reduced the risks of flooding, allowing safer access to deep areas of the pit. Where once men had been overcome by water, machinery now allowed controlled pumping that revealed new layers of construction. This meant that discoveries were not only safer but more precise, minimizing the risk of destroying fragile evidence. Among the most intriguing results of these technological efforts were patterns suggesting complex design and intentionality. The repeated discovery of oak platforms, layers of clay, and wooden supports indicated that the money pit was not a random hole, but a carefully engineered chamber. Some areas appeared to have been deliberately flooded and drained, as if the original builders had created a system to protect whatever lay at the bottom. This evidence revitalized old theories about Templar involvement, pirate treasure, or secret relics, now supported by tangible proof of advanced engineering. Yet technology also brought new questions. Every anomaly raised the possibility of discovery, but also the fear of misinterpretation. Could layers of sediment be natural? Could fragments of metal be the result of past expeditions rather than original construction? The team had to balance excitement with caution, interpreting every finding within a historical, geological, and human context. Oak Island, despite all the modern tools, remained as elusive as ever. The impact of these breakthroughs extended beyond the dig site. Viewers around the world could follow the investigation in near real-time through television documentaries and online platforms. Each scan, drill, and discovery was shared, creating a global audience invested in the outcome. Oak Island became a stage on which history, technology, and human ambition played out simultaneously. The island's mystery was no longer confined to a few explorers. It had become a collective fascination. Technological advances also reshaped the narrative of Oak Island's legend. Where once the story relied heavily on anecdote, speculation, and partial evidence, modern methods allowed for more concrete conclusions. At the same time, however, the more that was discovered, the deeper the mysteries seemed to grow. Every new layer of timber, every core sample, and every submersible video seemed to suggest that Oak Island had been engineered with a level of precision and intent far beyond previous imagination. It was as if the island was speaking to the modern age in a language of engineering and calculation, challenging each generation to rise to its standards. Despite these breakthroughs, the ultimate prize remained elusive. The money pit, the tunnels, and the chambers held their secrets tightly. Technology had revealed clues, confirmed human engineering, and provided safer access to previously unreachable areas, but the final revelation remained just out of reach. This tension between progress and mystery became a defining feature of Oak Island's modern era. The technological age of Oak Island demonstrated the enduring power of human curiosity. Where centuries of manual labor had failed, modern science offered hope. Yet the island had not surrendered, and perhaps that was its greatest lesson. No amount of machinery or data could replace patience, insight, and persistence. Oak Island demanded a marriage of intellect and daring, testing not only physical capability but the limits of human ingenuity. Through these advancements, Oak Island transformed from a historical enigma into a living laboratory. Every scan, drill, and discovery added a new chapter to a story that had unfolded for over 2 centuries. The island was no longer merely a location of legend. It had become a testament to the interplay of human ambition, technology, and the mysteries of the past. For the Lagina brothers and their team, each breakthrough was a step closer to understanding, yet also a reminder that the greatest secrets often remain hidden until the right combination of skill, courage, and destiny aligns. And so, Oak Island continues to challenge the modern world. Technology may illuminate, but it cannot yet conquer. The money pit and the flood tunnels stand as silent sentinels of history, daring each new generation to dream, explore, and perhaps, one day, uncover a truth that has eluded humanity for centuries. Every dig, every drill, and every sonar scan on Oak Island brought new pieces of a puzzle that had confounded generations. But it was the artifacts, small fragments of a long-buried history, that carried the deepest intrigue. These remnants, buried beneath centuries of soil and seawater, hinted at human hands, deliberate design, and perhaps even a story far larger than mere treasure. For the Lagina brothers and their team, each discovery was more than evidence. It was a whisper from the past, a tangible connection to those who had come before. Some of the most compelling finds were simple objects that spoke volumes. Pieces of oak and pine, carefully shaped and layered, suggested the construction of platforms or chambers. Nails and spikes, corroded but unmistakably forged by human hands, were scattered deep within the money pit. Coconut fiber, not native to Nova Scotia, appeared in layers interspersed with clay. These fragments raised questions. Who had brought them here? How and why? And most importantly, what were they protecting? Stone artifacts added another layer of mystery. Many were carved with symbols, letters, or patterns that resisted easy interpretation. Some resembled markings from medieval Europe, while others were more cryptic, seemingly unique to the island. Geologists and historians debated their origin, but the fact that they existed deep underground, beneath engineered platforms, suggested deliberate placement. Were these markers intended as guidance, warning, or perhaps as part of a code? The ambiguity only deepened the legend, inviting speculation about Templar involvement, pirate concealment, or even secret societies whose histories remain shrouded in myth. Metal fragments found in the money pit and surrounding areas were equally fascinating. Some pieces appeared to be lead, possibly used to seal chambers or reinforce structures. Others were more enigmatic, corroded beyond recognition, yet unmistakably crafted by skilled hands. Tiny metal rods, square nails, and remnants of plates suggested advanced construction techniques, pointing to builders with knowledge far beyond what one might expect from early settlers or pirates. Every metallic clue sparked renewed debate, drawing experts and enthusiasts alike into a whirlwind of theories. Artifacts were not limited to the pit itself. Smith's Cove revealed layers of construction that suggested the presence of deliberate human activity over centuries. Stone foundations, wooden planks, and traces of man-made channels appeared in patterns too regular to be natural. These discoveries indicated a sophisticated system, possibly designed to protect whatever lay at the bottom of the money pit. The flood tunnels, once considered simple obstacles, now seem part of a grand design. Every artifact found along these tunnels, from small stones to fragments of wood, added weight to the idea that Oak Island was engineered with precision and intent. Some of the most enigmatic symbols were found on stones buried within these structures. Certain markings resembled crosses, geometric shapes, or inscriptions that bore no immediate resemblance to known alphabets. Cryptographers and historians pored over photographs and rubbings, attempting to decode patterns that might reveal the intentions of the builders. Each symbol became a potential key, yet every attempt to decipher them only revealed more questions. Were they protective marks, guiding symbols, or cryptic messages meant to mislead? The island offered no easy answers, insisting on both patience and imagination. In addition to artifacts themselves, the context in which they were found mattered immensely. Layer upon layer of clay, timber, and sediment suggested deliberate construction over long periods. The deeper the team dug, the more intricate the arrangements became. Platforms placed at precise intervals, timbers angled and supported in ways that resisted collapse, and wooden fragments treated to last centuries, all pointed to human intention rather than random chance. The artifacts were pieces of a larger plan, fragments of a story hidden beneath the earth. Beyond the physical objects, some artifacts hinted at larger connections to history and legend. Small coins, fragments of metal plates, and lead cross pieces suggested links to European origins, possibly Templar or Spanish. Coconut fiber indicated trade or contact far beyond the Atlantic coast of North America. Every finding raised questions about the people who had engineered Oak Island and their motivations. The island, once considered a local curiosity, now appeared as a crossroads of global history, connecting distant lands and eras in a single, buried mystery. Even the smallest items could provoke the imagination. A shard of pottery, a piece of rope, or a bent nail might seem insignificant on its own. Yet within the layered context of the pit, they became part of a narrative spanning centuries. The placement of each artifact, its depth, and its surrounding materials hinted at intention and design. The evidence suggested careful planning, precise execution, and a desire to hide something of extraordinary importance. Every object unearthed was a silent witness to the ingenuity, ambition, and secrecy of Oak Island's original architects. The process of uncovering these artifacts was painstaking. Each dig was carefully documented, photographed, and mapped. Core samples, sonar scans, and ground-penetrating radar guided the team to promising locations. Excavation required a combination of patience, skill, and courage, especially given the history of flooding and structural collapse. Yet each discovery brought renewed hope. Even fragments too small to be identified with certainty hinted at the presence of something far greater. Artifacts also carried emotional weight. For the Lagina brothers, every piece was a connection to the men who had come before, investors, engineers, laborers, and dreamers, some of whom had perished in pursuit of the same elusive prize. Each object was a reminder of the human cost of obsession, yet also of human perseverance. The artifacts gave a voice to the past, allowing the present generation to engage with the mystery in a tangible, deeply personal way. As the team cataloged these finds, a pattern began to emerge. Oak Island had been meticulously engineered, every tunnel, platform, and artifact carefully considered. Whether protecting gold, relics, or knowledge, the builders had anticipated generations of seekers, constructing a system that tested skill, patience, and intellect. The artifacts were the fingerprints of those builders, left behind as evidence, warning, and perhaps even as a message to the future. Through these discoveries, Oak Island continued to reveal itself as a place where history, legend, and human ambition converge. Every fragment, symbol, and relic reinforced the idea that the island was more than a simple treasure site. It was a carefully orchestrated enigma, a testament to ingenuity and secrecy. And while the ultimate prize remained hidden, the artifacts provided a tangible link to the past, keeping the story alive and compelling the modern world to keep searching. In the end, the artifacts and symbols of Oak Island are not just pieces of wood, stone, or metal. They are echoes of human intention and imagination. They challenge us to question what is possible, to consider the lengths to which someone might go to protect a secret, and to wonder what truths lie buried beneath the earth, waiting for the right combination of insight, courage, and persistence to be revealed. At the heart of Oak Island lies the Money Pit, the legendary shaft that has drawn treasure seekers for over 2 centuries. Its very name evokes mystery, danger, and obsession. But the more it is studied, the more questions arise. Is the Money Pit a true engineering marvel, designed to protect untold treasure, or an elaborate hoax, a clever trap meant to ensnare the ambitious and gullible? Every expedition, every scan, and every artifact brings both answers and new uncertainties. From the earliest records, the Money Pit has confounded observers. The original discovery in 1795 revealed a shaft approximately 3 feet in diameter, filled with layers of oak platforms, clay, and gravel. Each layer seemed deliberately placed, as though designed to frustrate those who would dig. Later explorers found evidence of flood tunnels, intricate wooden constructions, and layers of carefully compacted materials. To modern engineers, the sophistication of these features suggests remarkable planning and knowledge of structural mechanics. The pit was not simply a hole. It was a fortified chamber, resistant to collapse and capable of withstanding centuries of environmental pressure. Some theorists argue that such construction indicates genius on a level rare for the era. The precision of the wooden platforms, the alignment of flood tunnels, and the strategic use of clay and stone all point to a system designed with extraordinary foresight. If the pit was intended to protect treasure, then its builders understood both the natural forces at play and the human determination that would inevitably challenge it. Every layer, every plank, every piece of timber seems to have a purpose, suggesting that the Money Pit was more than a simple hiding place. It was a fortress built to endure. Yet others remained skeptical. Could the Money Pit be an elaborate hoax? Some historians propose that the pit was constructed by clever locals seeking to create a legend, attract attention, or simply play a centuries-long prank on anyone ambitious enough to dig. The presence of coconut fiber, mysterious stones, and metal fragments could be interpreted as props placed to reinforce a story, rather than evidence of genuine treasure. In this view, Oak Island itself becomes a psychological experiment in human greed and curiosity, a test of how far men will go in pursuit of the unknown. The truth may lie somewhere in between. Modern investigations have revealed engineering techniques far beyond what 19th-century diggers would have expected, yet concrete evidence of a massive hoard remains elusive. Could it be that the Money Pit was designed to protect a small but historically significant treasure rather than gold or jewels? Perhaps the builder's intentions were symbolic, ceremonial, or even encoded with messages meant for a future generation. The pit's mystery challenges our assumptions about history, technology, and human motivation. Flood tunnels are a critical element of the Money Pit's design and its greatest obstacle. These channels, thought to originate from Smith's Cove, appear to have been engineered to protect the pit from intruders. Water from the surrounding cove floods the shaft when attempts are made to dig too deep, creating a nearly insurmountable barrier. Modern analysis suggests the builders had an understanding of hydraulic principles that is astonishing for the era. The flood tunnels, combined with carefully laid timbers and clay, demonstrate a level of sophistication that makes the pit more than a simple excavation. It becomes a deliberate and highly effective protective system. Over the centuries, the Money Pit has inspired both awe and frustration. Treasure seekers have poured in countless hours, millions of dollars, and immeasurable energy, yet the pit continues to guard its secrets. Shafts collapse, flood tunnels refill, and layers of timber and sediment frustrate even the most careful explorers. For many, the pit represents both human ingenuity and human folly. It is a place where ambition and obsession collide, where the line between triumph and tragedy is dangerously thin. Some investigators propose that the pit's complexity suggests a connection to secret societies, pirates, or European explorers. Theories range from Templar relics hidden beneath the earth to Captain Kidd's lost fortune, to Spanish gold from the New World. While evidence for each theory is circumstantial, the engineering required to create the pit supports the idea that its original creators were highly skilled and had a reason to conceal something of great value. The money pit, in this sense, becomes not just a physical structure, but a historical enigma bridging continents, centuries, and cultures. Modern technology has offered glimpses beneath the surface that 19th-century diggers could only imagine. Ground-penetrating radar, coarse samples, sonar, and submersible cameras have revealed voids, platforms, and tunnels that suggest deliberate construction. But even with these tools, the ultimate depth and contents of the money pit remain unknown. Each new layer uncovered brings both excitement and caution. The pit continues to resist as if it possesses a will of its own. It tests the skill, patience, and persistence of those who dare to challenge it. There is also a human element to consider. The money pit has claimed lives, destroyed fortunes, and inspired obsession. It tests not only engineering and ingenuity, but character and resolve. Every shaft collapse, every flooded tunnel, every artifact recovered is a reminder that the pit is as dangerous psychologically as it is physically. The money pit embodies both the allure of discovery and the peril of obsession. Its mystery is not only in what lies beneath, but in what it reveals about those who pursue it. Could the pit be a message rather than a treasure? Some historians suggest that its complex construction might encode historical or religious information, a hidden record meant for those clever enough to decode it. Others argue that the pit's design may have been intended to safeguard something sacred or symbolic rather than material wealth. In either case, the money pit stands as a monument to human curiosity, a structure that transcends time, testing each generation in turn. The debate continues: engineering marvel or hoax, sacred vault or practical treasure chest. Every new expedition reignites the discussion. Each discovery fuels speculation, inviting experts and amateurs alike to weigh in. The money pit's allure is not diminished by uncertainty. In fact, it is enhanced. The more we understand about its complexity, the more we realize how much remains hidden. The pit challenges us to consider the capabilities, intentions, and ingenuity of those who came before, and to ask whether our own modern tools are sufficient to unlock a mystery that has survived centuries. In the end, the money pit is more than a shaft in the ground. It is a symbol of human ambition, ingenuity, and obsession. It embodies the intersection of history, engineering, and myth, standing as a reminder that some mysteries demand not only skill but patience, insight, and courage. Whether it conceals gold, relics, or knowledge, the money pit will continue to captivate and challenge, drawing new generations into its depths, daring them to uncover a truth that has eluded the world for over 200 years. Oak Island is not just a place of soil, timber, and water. It is a crossroads of legend, a point where history, myth, and speculation collide. Over the centuries, the money pit has been linked to some of the most mysterious and daring figures in human imagination. Pirates who roamed the Atlantic, knights of secretive orders like the Templars, and secret societies whose symbols and codes have fascinated scholars for generations. Each theory adds a layer of intrigue, suggesting that Oak Island is more than a treasure site. It is a nexus of history itself. Pirates are among the earliest and most enduring figures associated with Oak Island. The golden age of piracy in the 17th and 18th centuries produced men who sought fortunes across the Atlantic, hiding their wealth where no authority could find it. Legends claim that infamous pirates, perhaps even Captain Kidd or Blackbeard, buried chests of gold, silver, and jewels on the island, protected by traps, tunnels, and layers of engineering designed to thwart discovery. Some evidence supports these tales. Coins, lead fragments, and remnants of chests hint at pirate activity, though definitive proof remains elusive. The idea that Oak Island could be a pirate's masterwork has captivated generations, blending the thrill of adventure with a human fascination for hidden riches. Yet the pirate theory only scratches the surface. Some researchers trace the island's mystery back further, suggesting connections to the Knights Templar, a secretive medieval order whose members were rumored to guard sacred relics and vast treasures. The Templars, dissolved by the early 1300s under dramatic and violent circumstances, were alleged to have dispersed their wealth and secrets across the world. Oak Island, according to this theory, might be a repository for one such relic, a sacred object, a map, or gold intended to preserve the order's legacy. Proponents point to symbols found on stones, the meticulous engineering of the money pit, and the appearance of coconut fibers as hints of Templar involvement. Each piece, while circumstantial, fuels a tantalizing narrative. The island as a cryptic vault built by one of history's most secretive societies. The concept of hidden codes also threads through Oak Island's story. Some of the carved symbols and enigmatic markings found on stones in and around the money pit resemble codes or ciphered messages. Cryptographers have long debated whether these symbols are part of a deliberate system designed to conceal knowledge from the uninitiated. Could the pit itself be a puzzle, a complex message left for those clever enough to decode it? Each mark, each unusual artifact, suggests intention. Someone wanted future generations to think, search, and perhaps decipher a hidden truth. The idea that Oak Island is a centuries-old code rather than a simple treasure hunt adds layers of intellectual intrigue to an already mysterious site. Stories intertwining pirates and Templars often overlap. Some theorists suggest that pirate captains may have been influenced by Templar lore, perhaps as descendants or guardians of lost knowledge. This convergence creates a rich tapestry of speculation. The money pit as both a practical treasure vault and a cryptic repository of sacred or coded artifacts. The more one studies Oak Island, the more the lines between historical fact and legend blur, leaving a tantalizing uncertainty that continues to fascinate modern explorers. Adding to the intrigue are references in historical documents to explorers, settlers, and surveyors who noted oddities on the island. Early maps indicate unusual structures or formations, some of which correspond to modern discoveries. Records of stones bearing carved symbols, deep pits filled with oak and clay, and flood tunnels suggest intentional design, supporting the idea that Oak Island was purposefully engineered to protect something remarkable. Whether the creators were pirates, knights, or another secretive group entirely remains unknown, but their fingerprints are everywhere. Local legends and oral histories amplify the sense of mystery. Stories passed down through generations describe strange lights, hidden compartments, and the unexplainable engineering of the island. Some tales claim that treasures were hidden in coded messages within the pit itself, or that supernatural forces protected the site. While these accounts cannot be verified, they reveal the cultural impact of Oak Island. It is a place where imagination and reality intertwine, where human fascination with secrecy and wealth finds a tangible anchor. Even the curses associated with Oak Island add to the narrative's depth. The idea that 7 men must die before the treasure can be revealed has become legendary, seemingly validated by the repeated tragedies that have occurred over centuries of exploration. When combined with theories of pirates, Templars, and hidden codes, the curse takes on symbolic significance. The island itself appears almost sentient, guarding its secrets against those unworthy or unprepared. Each death, each misfortune, reinforces the narrative that Oak Island is a crucible of ambition, intelligence, and risk. Modern investigations continue to uncover elements that feed these intertwined legends. Symbols found on stones, fragments of lead, coins, and rare metals all hint at historical connections far beyond Nova Scotia. Coconut fibers, possibly sourced from tropical regions, suggest long-distance trade or deliberate importation. Even geological studies support the idea that the money pit was deliberately constructed to resist flooding and intrusion. Every finding, however small, offers another thread linking Oak Island to historical figures, secret societies, or audacious adventurers whose identities remain tantalizingly just out of reach. The interplay between myth and fact is central to Oak Island's enduring appeal. Pirates may have buried treasure here. Templars may have protected sacred relics. Hidden codes may still conceal messages meant for the discerning few. Yet the island resists definitive explanation, ensuring that each discovery brings new questions as well as answers. This balance between revelation and mystery is what makes Oak Island compelling across generations. It is a place where human ambition meets history, legend, and enigma, and where every artifact or symbol deepens the allure rather than diminishes it. For the Lagina brothers, the challenge of Oak Island is both technical and intellectual. Every new symbol, artifact, or layer of construction becomes a clue in a puzzle that spans centuries. They must navigate a landscape shaped not only by geology but by imagination, human intent, and centuries of storytelling. Each theory, pirate, Templar, or coded message guides their search, helping to frame hypotheses and direct excavations, while simultaneously reminding them of the complexity and patience required to confront the island's enduring mysteries. Ultimately, Oak Island is more than a site of treasure. It is a convergence of legend, human ingenuity, and historical intrigue. The stories of pirates, Templars, and hidden codes give depth to the search, transforming it from a mere excavation into a journey through time, culture, and imagination. The island challenges each generation to engage with history creatively, blending fact with interpretation, courage with intellect, and curiosity with skepticism. As exploration continues, the intertwined legends of Oak Island remind us that some mysteries are never simple. Each artifact, symbol, and engineered layer suggests design, intent, and story. Each discovery invites speculation, debate, and wonder. And each unanswered question reinforces the sense that Oak Island is not just a location, but a narrative, an enduring tale of ambition, secrecy, and the human desire to uncover the unknown. The story of Oak Island is not only a tale of treasure and mystery, it is a story of people, of ambition, obsession, and the toll taken on those who dared to challenge the island's secrets. For over 2 centuries, countless men and women have risked life, fortune, and sanity in pursuit of a prize that has remained tantalizingly out of reach. Each expedition tells a human story as compelling and tragic as the legend itself, revealing the cost of chasing the unknown. The earliest explorers in the late 18th and early 19th centuries set the precedent. Daniel McGinnis, the young man who first spotted the depression that would become the Money Pit, was driven by curiosity and youthful daring. With friends, he dug by hand, uncovering initial layers of oak, clay, and stone. Their success was short-lived, as flooding thwarted their efforts and danger lurked in the pit's depths. McGinnis' story exemplifies the blend of hope and risk that would define every Oak Island expedition, a small victory tempered by the harsh realities of nature and human limitation. In the decades that followed, more organized groups took up the challenge. Entrepreneurs and investors, often motivated by dreams of wealth, pooled resources to excavate deeper and wider. Men like the Onslow Company, Truro Company, and later the Oak Island Treasure Company brought machinery, laborious, and ambition to the island. Yet as each new venture began, the risks multiplied. Shafts collapsed, water flooded tunnels, and crude explosives used to blast through layers of earth created deadly conditions. For every triumph and discovery, there was a corresponding tragedy, injury, loss, or financial ruin. The human cost became even more pronounced in the 20th century. The Restall family, who moved to Oak Island to pursue the treasure, faced heartbreak and tragedy. In 1965, Robert Restall and 3 companions succumbed to toxic fumes during a shaft excavation. Their deaths underscored the inherent danger of the Money Pit, reminding all who followed that Oak Island exacted a price far beyond money. The story of the Restalls is a haunting testament to the island's power, a place where hope, determination, and danger are inseparable, and where obsession can become fatal. The mid-century era saw Daniel Blankenship rise as one of Oak Island's most dedicated seekers. He devoted decades to exploration, often risking not only his finances but his personal safety. Blankenship's story embodies both human perseverance and the cost of obsession. Lives were endangered as shafts collapsed, tunnels flooded, and machinery failed under the relentless demands of excavation. Despite the dangers, Blankenship remained undeterred, convinced that the money pit held a secret worth any risk. His dedication inspired a new generation, showing that the pursuit of history and mystery could become a lifelong mission. Modern expeditions, led by the Lagina brothers, continue to highlight the human dimension of Oak Island. Rick and Marty bring intelligence, technology, and teamwork, yet the challenges remain formidable. Flooded tunnels, unstable soil, and hidden hazards remind even experienced engineers that the island is as unpredictable as it is alluring. Each dig requires careful planning and risk assessment, and every discovery is tempered by the knowledge that past seekers paid dearly for their curiosity. Yet the human cost is not limited to physical danger. Emotional and financial tolls are equally significant. Families invested life savings, sometimes risking generational wealth, in the hope of uncovering the prize. Friendships fractured under the strain of disagreement or failure, and the mental burden of obsession weighed heavily on those consumed by the pursuit. Oak Island, in this sense, is as much a psychological test as a physical one. The money pit challenges courage, patience, and judgment, exposing the vulnerabilities and ambitions of anyone who dares to engage with it. Historical records also hint at lives lost in obscurity. Early explorers, often poorly documented, faced accidents, disease, and exposure while working in dangerous conditions. Flood tunnels, unstable platforms, and the unpredictable maritime environment made every venture hazardous. These forgotten tragedies serve as silent reminders of the stakes, underscoring the island's dual nature. It is both a site of potential wonder and a place of real human peril. The saga of Oak Island also illustrates the interplay between greed and determination. Investors and dreamers alike were driven by the promise of wealth, yet many found that the treasure, if it exists, came at a cost far greater than gold. Lives, health, and fortune were risked in pursuit of an ideal, revealing the depths of human ambition and the lengths to which people will go when lured by mystery and possibility. Oak Island has a way of magnifying these traits, turning curiosity into obsession and ambition into recklessness. Modern expeditions continue to document both successes and near misses. While the Lagina brothers have brought advanced technology and methodical strategies, the island still tests limits. Machinery fails, shafts flood, and subtle errors can lead to setbacks or danger. Yet these modern challenges echo those faced by earlier generations, creating a sense of continuity in human endeavor. Oak Island has remained consistent in one thing. It demands respect and exacts a prize from those who approach it with hubris or carelessness. Despite the risks, Oak Island continues to inspire. The human stories, the triumphs, tragedies, and relentless pursuit of the unknown add depth and emotional resonance to the legend. They remind us that the island's mystery is inseparable from the people who engage with it, and that the pursuit of knowledge, treasure, or history carries real consequences. Each expedition is a chapter in a larger narrative, one that spans centuries and reflects the human desire to challenge limits, confront the unknown, and engage with history in a tangible, meaningful way. Ultimately, Oak Island is a testament to human resilience and curiosity. The notable expeditions, whether successful or tragic, reveal the interplay of ambition, risk, and perseverance. They show that treasure hunting is not merely about wealth, but about the human spirit, the courage to dream, the determination to persist, and the willingness to face danger in pursuit of the extraordinary. The island, with all its mysteries and hazards, continues to demand this of every generation. In this sense, the human cost of Oak Island is inseparable from its allure. Lives are risked because the dream is irresistible, because the possibility of uncovering something extraordinary surpasses rational caution. Every injury, loss, or setback only heightens the drama, reinforcing the legend and the emotional stakes. The island is not passive. It is a character in its own right, interacting with those who dare to explore it, testing their limits, and leaving an indelible mark on every life it touches. For every dollar invested, for every hour spent in dangerous shafts, and for every life risked, Oak Island rewards not with certainty but with the promise of possibility. It is this delicate balance of risk and potential, danger and discovery, that defines the human story of the island. The tragedies and triumphs intertwine, creating a narrative that is as emotionally compelling as it is historically fascinating. The legacy of notable expeditions is therefore a human one. Oak Island challenges not only the intellect but the heart. It calls for bravery, ingenuity, and endurance, while simultaneously reminding seekers of the consequences of obsession. Through the centuries, the island has claimed lives, tested ambition, and inspired dreams. And yet, it continues to attract explorers, historians, and adventurers, each drawn by the hope of uncovering what has eluded so many before. Oak Island is a place where human courage meets mystery, where determination confronts danger, and where the stakes, both tangible and intangible, remain as high as ever. The story of its expeditions is the story of humanity itself, daring, resilient, sometimes reckless, and always compelled by the allure of the unknown. It is a reminder that behind every legend lies the reality of human experience, the risks, the costs, and the profound rewards of facing the extraordinary. Oak Island has been the subject of speculation for over 2 centuries, and with each new discovery or failed attempt, the theories have grown more elaborate and mysterious. What lies beneath the money pit? Is it gold, treasure, historical artifacts, or something entirely unexpected? The allure of Oak Island is not only in what is known but in what could be hidden, and the theories surrounding it are as varied as they are tantalizing. One of the most persistent theories is that Oak Island conceals pirate treasure. The golden age of piracy produced men who needed secure places to hide their wealth, coins, jewelry, and precious metals. Captain Kidd, Blackbeard, and other notorious pirates are frequently mentioned in connection with the island. Evidence that supports this theory includes coins found in the money pit, metal fragments, and remnants of wooden chests. Yet no definitive hoard has ever been discovered, leaving open the possibility that the treasure was moved, looted, or never existed at all. The pirate theory, while captivating, continues to spark debate because it blends history, legend, and circumstantial evidence into a narrative that is difficult to confirm yet impossible to dismiss. Another theory involves the Knights Templar, the secretive medieval order that once held immense power and wealth. Some suggest that the Templars brought sacred relics, valuable manuscripts, or gold to the New World and concealed them on Oak Island. Symbols found on stones, precise engineering of the money pit, and traces of foreign materials like coconut fiber hint at connections to Europe and distant lands. If true, the island might not just contain treasure but knowledge, artifacts of historical and spiritual significance designed to endure for centuries. This theory captivates not just treasure hunters but historians and cryptographers intrigued by the Templars' enduring mystique. The possibility of a coded or symbolic message hidden in Oak Island structures has also gained traction. Some researchers argue that the money pit and surrounding tunnels were deliberately engineered to encode information. Wooden platforms, stone placements, and carved symbols might be part of a centuries-old puzzle. Perhaps the island contains a map, instructions, or messages meant to guide the right person, or mislead the uninitiated. In this light, the money pit becomes not just a vault but a brain-teasing challenge that has spanned generations, blending intellectual intrigue with physical danger. Some theories focus on historical artifacts unrelated to gold. Could the island hold treasures from lost civilizations, European explorers, or even the Spanish New World expeditions? Coins, rare metals, and foreign timber hint at activity far beyond local settlers. Oak Island could be a resting place for objects of immense historical importance, not merely material wealth. These theories, while speculative, underscore the island's role as a historical crossroads, an intersection of geography, culture, and human ambition. Other ideas stretch even further into mystery. Some theorists suggest Oak Island could conceal religious relics, ancient manuscripts, or even items of global significance meant to remain hidden from the world. The engineering of the money pit, the use of flood tunnels, and the deliberate placement of artifacts suggest intention, foresight, and secrecy. Could it be that what lies beneath is not gold but knowledge, a message from the past waiting to reshape our understanding of history? The ambiguity fuels both hope and imagination, keeping Oak Island in the realm of fascination and debate. The role of natural phenomena adds another layer of speculation. Some experts believe that the pit's unusual structure could exploit the island's geological features, protecting whatever lies beneath from discovery. Flooding tunnels may have been strategically placed to harness tidal movements, while clay layers and timber platforms could serve as stabilizers. If these natural defenses were intentionally integrated, the builders possessed an understanding of both engineering and environment that far exceeds what is commonly assumed for the period. Theories about hidden genius, ancient knowledge, or advanced planning all emerge from these observations. Yet Oak Island continues to defy definitive answers. Each expedition uncovers clues but also deepens the mystery. Artifacts, symbols, and structural evidence suggest deliberate human activity, yet the ultimate purpose remains elusive. Was the money pit created for treasure, a sacred purpose, or simply as an intellectual challenge? Perhaps its creators intended it to test the ingenuity, patience, and determination of those who would come after. Every discovery, no matter how small, raises more questions than it answers, reinforcing the island's enigmatic allure. Modern technology has further expanded the possibilities. Ground-penetrating radar, sonar scans, and remote-operated submersibles reveal voids, tunnels, and chambers that suggest hidden constructions. These technological insights have given weight to theories once dismissed as improbable. At the same time, however, the absence of definitive treasure or relics leaves room for doubt. Theories flourish because the island is both revealing and withholding simultaneously, offering glimpses of history and engineering without yielding its ultimate secret. Human imagination plays a crucial role in Oak Island's theories. Each generation interprets discoveries through the lens of its own cultural and historical understanding. Pirates, Templars, lost civilizations, sacred relics, and coded messages. These ideas reflect our collective fascination with secrecy, adventure, and the unknown. Theories are more than speculation. They are a testament to the human need to create narrative, to assign meaning to anomalies, and to challenge the limits of discovery. Oak Island acts as a canvas for these projections, a stage on which imagination and reality intertwine. Theories also serve as a framework for action. For explorers like the Lagina brothers, speculation guides investigation. Pirate theories inform searches for coins and chests. Templar hypotheses shape interpretations of symbols, and coded message ideas influence excavation strategy. The interplay between theory and discovery is symbiotic. Hypotheses direct exploration, and discoveries refine or challenge those ideas. Oak Island, in this way, functions as both mystery and laboratory, testing not only historical knowledge but the creativity and reasoning of those who study it. Despite centuries of searching, Oak Island has never fully yielded its secret. This ambiguity allows theories to evolve, combining historical data, engineering analysis, and speculation in ways that remain compelling. Every artifact recovered, every tunnel explored, and every anomaly detected adds fuel to the imagination, ensuring that the mystery endures. Theories are thus not static. They grow with each discovery, reflecting the ongoing dialogue between human curiosity and the island's enigmatic nature. Ultimately, Oak Island's allure lies in the tension between certainty and speculation. What lies beneath the money pit could be pirate treasure, Templar relics, historical artifacts, or something entirely unimagined. Theories are endless because the evidence is partial, fragmented, and tantalizing. Each possibility carries weight, drawing explorers, historians, and dreamers into a centuries-long quest that is as much about the journey as the destination. The fascination with Oak Island is therefore universal. It is a story of possibility, mystery, and human ambition, one that transcends geography and era. Theories capture our imagination because they suggest that the past holds secrets yet to be revealed, that human ingenuity, ancient or modern, can shape destiny, and that some mysteries endure precisely because they challenge our understanding and test our curiosity. In the end, Oak Island's theories are as valuable as any treasure itself. They compel us to think, to explore, and to imagine. They remind us that history is not merely a record of what has happened, but a series of questions waiting for answers. And as long as the money pit remains unsolved, speculation will thrive, ensuring that Oak Island continues to captivate, intrigue, and inspire those who dare to dream. As one stands on the shores of Oak Island, watching the waves lap against the rocky coastline, it is easy to feel the weight of centuries pressing down. The money pit, the flood tunnels, and the scattered artifacts are not merely physical structures. They are symbols of human desire, ambition, and the unquenchable thirst for discovery. The emotional allure of Oak Island is a force as powerful as any engineering marvel or hidden treasure. It captivates hearts and minds, drawing people into a story that blends hope, obsession, and the eternal search for meaning. The allure begins with mystery itself. Human beings are hardwired to seek patterns, to crave answers, to yearn for understanding. Oak Island presents questions with no immediate solutions. Who built the money pit? What is buried beneath its layers? Why were flood tunnels engineered so precisely? Every unanswered question is a spark, igniting imagination and inspiring the next generation of explorers. The island's ability to withhold answers transforms curiosity into obsession, and obsession into a deeply personal journey, where every shovel of earth carries both promise and risk. For the Lagina brothers, the emotional stakes are deeply human. Rick and Marty are not merely explorers. They are inheritors of a centuries-old dream. Each day on Oak Island is a negotiation between hope and frustration, between belief and skepticism. Their successes, however small, bring elation. Setbacks, no matter how minor, carry profound disappointment. The emotional rollercoaster mirrors the experiences of all who have sought the island's secrets, from early settlers to modern treasure hunters. In this sense, Oak Island is a crucible of emotion, testing the human heart as rigorously as it tests engineering skill. The money pit, in particular, is an emotional magnet. Each layer uncovered, each anomaly detected, each artifact retrieved is a heartbeat of possibility. The anticipation of discovery is electric. The pit seems to hum with centuries of secrets. Yet it also embodies frustration and loss. Flooding, collapses, and dead ends remind explorers that the island is neither predictable nor forgiving. The emotional highs and lows are inseparable from the physical act of excavation. They are part of what makes Oak Island not just a site of legend, but a deeply human story of perseverance, courage, and vulnerability. Beyond the tangible dangers, there's a profound psychological component. Theories of pirates, Templars, and hidden codes feed the imagination, but they also challenge rationality. Each potential discovery is weighed against decades of failures, historical ambiguity, and the ever-present risk of disappointment. Explorers must navigate not only physical obstacles but the internal struggle between hope and skepticism, excitement and fear. This emotional tension heightens the drama, transforming the act of exploration into a personal odyssey that resonates with anyone who has pursued a dream against overwhelming odds. Oak Island also evokes empathy. The human cost of its legend, the lives lost, fortunes spent, and dreams shattered, adds gravity to every discovery. It is impossible to study the island without sensing the ghosts of past seekers, their triumphs, failures, and sacrifices. This connection to human experience amplifies the emotional impact, reminding us that the pursuit of knowledge or treasure is never abstract. It is lived, felt, and often costly. The emotional resonance of the island extends beyond its physical presence, reaching across time to touch those who follow in the footsteps of past generations. The island's mystery also stimulates wonder and awe. The precision of the money pit's construction, the engineering of the flood tunnels, and the deliberate placement of artifacts suggest intelligence, creativity, and intent far beyond what one might expect from its era. To stand over the pit, imagining the hands that built it, the minds that engineered it, and the secrets it protects is to feel a connection with history that is both humbling and exhilarating. This emotional dimension, where intellect meets imagination and curiosity meets respect, deepens the human engagement with Oak Island in ways that pure speculation cannot. Furthermore, Oak Island embodies the tension between control and surrender. Explorers plan meticulously, use advanced technology, and study history in detail. Yet the island remains unpredictable. Water floods shafts, platforms collapse, and artifacts remain hidden. The emotional climax of Oak Island is the confrontation with this uncertainty. Human determination meets natural and historical resistance, creating a space where patience, ingenuity, and courage are tested simultaneously. The island challenges ego, ambition, and expectation, reminding us that some mysteries demand humility as well as skill. The allure is amplified by the narrative of continuity. Every generation of seekers feels connected to those who came before, from Daniel McGinnis to the Lagina brothers. This sense of historical lineage transforms exploration into a story larger than oneself. Each dig, each discovery, and each setback is part of a multi-century dialogue between human curiosity and Oak Island secrets. The emotional pull is thus not just about potential treasure. It is about participating in a legacy, engaging with history, and confronting a challenge that has shaped countless lives. Legends, theories, and artifacts combine to create a tapestry of emotional engagement. The mind is captivated by the possibilities: pirate gold, Templar relics, ancient manuscripts, hidden codes. The heart is stirred by the human stories: lives lost, fortunes risked, and dreams pursued. The island's mystery becomes a mirror, reflecting both the ambition and vulnerability inherent in human nature. Each new clue rekindles hope, each dead end reinforces perseverance, and each artifact recovered, no matter how small, serves as a reminder that discovery is never merely material. It is deeply emotional, intellectual, and existential. Ultimately, the emotional climax of Oak Island lies in the tension between what is known and what is possible. The money pit and its surrounding structures are more than physical constructs. They are emotional constructs, designed by history, human ambition, and imagination to engage every sense. Explorers and viewers alike feel the thrill of possibility, the anxiety of danger, and the weight of centuries pressing through the soil. This emotional intensity is a defining feature of Oak Island, ensuring that its allure persists generation after generation. Even as technology provides new tools, even as theories evolve, the emotional draw remains unchanged. Oak Island is a testament to the human spirit, the desire to seek, to question, and to persevere against uncertainty. It reminds us that the pursuit of mystery is as valuable as the mystery itself, that the journey, with its highs and lows, shapes the character of those who undertake it. The island does not give its secrets freely, and it does not allow exploration without consequence. Its emotional grip is inescapable, compelling, and enduring. In the end, Oak Island's emotional power is inseparable from its mystery. The money pit and its artifacts, the legends of pirates and Templars, and the human stories of triumph and tragedy converge to create an experience that is both intellectually and emotionally transformative. To engage with Oak Island is to confront uncertainty, to embrace possibility, and to participate in a narrative that transcends time. The island is not simply a location. It is a crucible of human curiosity, ambition, and emotion, one that challenges, inspires, and enthralls like no other. And so, the emotional climax of Oak Island is not a single discovery, a treasure, or a resolution. It is the experience itself, the thrill of pursuit, the weight of history, and the unshakable allure of the unknown. It is a reminder that some mysteries endure because they touch something fundamental within us, compelling us to explore, to dream, and to seek beyond the boundaries of the known. After more than 2 centuries of digging, exploring, theorizing, and speculating, Oak Island offers tantalizing glimpses of a truth that remains just out of reach. Each discovery, each anomaly, and each artifact adds another piece to a puzzle that is as intricate as it is elusive. The final revelations are not merely about what lies buried beneath the money pit. They are about understanding the story the island has been trying to tell all along, a narrative of human ambition, ingenuity, secrecy, and the enduring power of mystery. Recent technological advances have transformed the search for answers. Ground-penetrating radar, sonar imaging, and submersible cameras allow explorers to peer beneath layers of earth and water in ways unimaginable to previous generations. These tools have uncovered voids, tunnels, and structural elements suggesting deliberate design, confirming that the money pit was not a haphazard excavation, but a meticulously engineered construction. Each new scan, each core sample, and each sonar reading provides more evidence that the island's mysteries are rooted in human ingenuity, reinforcing the possibility that something remarkable remains hidden beneath the surface. Artifacts recovered over the years continue to fuel speculation and illuminate the final revelations. From medieval-style coins to fragments of tools and chests, each item hints at historical connections, long-distance trade, and human intent. Coconut fibers, stone carvings, and wooden platforms speak to a construction effort that required both knowledge and careful planning. While these discoveries have yet to yield a single definitive treasure, they collectively tell a story of purpose, foresight, and the deliberate concealment of something valuable, whether material, symbolic, or intellectual. Interpreting these clues requires a careful balance of skepticism and imagination. Oak Island's layers are filled with potential misdirection, natural anomalies, and artifacts whose origins remain ambiguous. The final revelations, therefore, are not necessarily found in a single object but in the broader pattern emerging from centuries of investigation. Engineers, historians, and explorers alike piece together the narrative, hypothesizing connections between structural features, flood tunnels, and recovered artifacts. Each theory adds depth, and each discovery refines understanding, creating a mosaic of possibility that is as intellectually engaging as it is mysterious. Human ingenuity is a recurring theme in Oak Island's revelations. The precision of the money pit's engineering, the strategic design of flood tunnels, and the layering of oak and clay suggest knowledge of structural principles that were advanced for their time. Whoever built the pit understood both environmental forces and human determination, anticipating centuries of exploration and obstruction. This realization transforms the money pit from a mere hole in the ground into a testament to ingenuity, a monument to the skill and foresight of its creators. The convergence of history, legend, and speculation adds richness to the final revelations. Connections to pirates, Templars, and explorers imply that Oak Island may have been a focal point for knowledge, wealth, or secrets intended to endure through generations. Coins and artifacts link the island to distant lands, while symbols and markings hint at coded messages or ceremonial significance. Together, these elements suggest that the money pit was more than a simple treasure vault. It may have been a repository for something historically and culturally profound, deliberately constructed to challenge those who sought it. Perhaps the most compelling revelation is psychological. Oak Island tests the human spirit as much as it tests physical skill. Every generation of explorers confronts the same obstacles, faces similar frustrations, and experiences the same emotional highs and lows. The money pit, flood tunnels, and scattered artifacts are not merely challenges of engineering. They are trials of patience, courage, and perseverance. In this way, the final revelations extend beyond the material. The island itself becomes a mirror, reflecting ambition, obsession, and the unrelenting desire to uncover the unknown. Modern explorations have brought a level of clarity previously impossible, but ambiguity remains. Sonar and radar imaging suggest chambers yet to be fully explored, tunnels whose purpose is not entirely understood, and layers of construction that continue to defy simple explanation. These findings reinforce a fundamental truth about Oak Island. It is a puzzle designed to endure. The final revelations are therefore as much about appreciating the sophistication of the mystery as about uncovering the treasure itself. The island's design challenges assumptions, rewards careful analysis, and keeps its secrets tantalizingly out of reach. The cumulative human effort invested in Oak Island is also a revelation in itself. Generations have devoted years, sometimes lifetimes, to a quest that is part adventure, part obsession, and part historical investigation. The sheer persistence of explorers, from McGuinness and the Onslow Company to modern-day teams led by the Laguna brothers, illustrates the power of curiosity and determination. Oak Island's enduring allure lies not only in its physical secrets but in the human stories intertwined with every layer of soil and timber, a testament to our collective fascination with mystery and discovery. Symbolic and intellectual treasures may be as significant as material ones. If the money pit and associated tunnels encode messages, hide manuscripts, or preserve historical artifacts, then Oak Island functions as a multidimensional puzzle, part engineering marvel, part cryptographic challenge, part historical archive. The final revelations, therefore, extend beyond gold and jewels. They encompass understanding the intentions of its creators, decoding the knowledge preserved, and interpreting the lessons embedded in centuries of design and effort. As exploration continues, the interplay between hope and patience becomes evident. Each discovery, whether mundane or extraordinary, is a piece of a larger mosaic, gradually revealing patterns and connections that were previously obscured. The money pit, once thought to be a simple shaft, now appears as a deliberate, multi-layered construction with both physical and symbolic significance. Every artifact, tunnel, and structural anomaly contributes to the slowly emerging picture, demonstrating that the ultimate revelation may be cumulative rather than singular, a truth composed of many interconnected elements. The final revelations also underscore the enduring mystery of Oak Island. Even with advanced technology and centuries of investigation, definitive answers remain elusive. This uncertainty is part of the island's power. It invites imagination, debate, and continued exploration. Oak Island is not simply a site of potential treasure. It is a living narrative, a historical enigma that engages intellect, emotion, and curiosity. The mystery itself is part of the reward, offering lessons in perseverance, critical thinking, and the value of inquiry. In the end, Oak Island teaches a profound lesson about the pursuit of knowledge and discovery. The money pit, the flood tunnels, the artifacts, and the legends are not merely objects. They are components of a story that spans centuries. The final revelations lie not only in what is uncovered but in the understanding gained from the search, an appreciation for human ingenuity, the enduring power of mystery, and the resilience required to confront the unknown. Oak Island is a testament to the complexity and richness of history, where every layer, artifact, and clue contributes to a story that continues to unfold. The puzzle of Oak Island is far from complete, but the pieces revealed so far create a narrative that is compelling, intellectually stimulating, and emotionally resonant. From pirates and Templars to modern explorers, the story of Oak Island weaves together human ambition, historical intrigue, and enduring mystery. The final revelations are not simply about treasure. They are about perspective, understanding the sophistication of its design, the dedication of those who seek it, and the enduring allure that has captivated generations. Ultimately, Oak Island is a reminder that some mysteries are meant to endure, that the pursuit itself is as valuable as the discovery, and that human curiosity is a force capable of bridging centuries. The final revelations, therefore, are both literal and metaphorical, the uncovering of clues and the unveiling of human determination, imagination, and resilience. Oak Island challenges us to see beyond the surface, to respect the ingenuity of the past, and to embrace the wonder of the unknown. The money pit may yet yield its ultimate secret, or it may remain forever concealed, but the journey to uncover it has already revealed profound truths. Oak Island is a testament to the complexity of history, the depth of human curiosity, and the enduring power of mystery, a story that continues to unfold with every shovel, scan, and heartbeat of anticipation. As the sun sets over the rugged coastline of Oak Island, casting long shadows across the money pit and the surrounding forest, one cannot help but pause and reflect on what this enigmatic place truly represents. Beyond the tunnels, artifacts, and elusive treasure, Oak Island is a mirror reflecting human nature, our curiosity, ambition, resilience, and, at times, our obsession. The lessons it offers extend far beyond the physical confines of the island, reaching into the realms of history, psychology, and the very essence of what drives humanity to seek the unknown. Oak Island teaches us the enduring power of curiosity. From Daniel McGinnis's initial discovery to the modern explorations led by the Lagina brothers, the quest has been fueled by a relentless desire to uncover what lies hidden. Curiosity drives innovation, problem-solving, and exploration. It inspires people to question, investigate, and persevere. The Money Pit, with its engineered complexity and mysterious artifacts, rewards those willing to ask questions and persist in the face of uncertainty. Curiosity is both the spark and the sustainer of the Oak Island saga, reminding us that the desire to know is a fundamental aspect of human nature. The island also reveals the dual nature of ambition. Ambition motivates, propels explorers forward, and fuels human creativity. It is ambition that has led men and women to invest time, money, and energy into decades of excavation, risking physical danger and financial ruin. Yet Oak Island also warns of the perils of unchecked ambition. The legend of the Curse of Seven Deaths and the documented human cost of expeditions remind us that ambition without prudence can lead to tragedy. Oak Island, in this sense, is both an inspiration and a cautionary tale, a place where ambition must be tempered with respect, patience, and wisdom. Persistence is another lesson the island imparts. For over 2 centuries, countless individuals have returned to Oak Island despite failure, disappointment, and danger. Each generation builds upon the efforts of those before, learning from mistakes, applying new technologies, and refining strategies. The story of Oak Island demonstrates that human progress is rarely linear. It is iterative, cumulative, and often forged through struggle. The island's mysteries have endured precisely because they demand perseverance, patience, and a willingness to confront setbacks without surrendering hope. Oak Island also illuminates the interplay between imagination and intellect. Theories involving pirates, Templars, hidden codes, and sacred relics are not mere flights of fancy. They are structured hypotheses that guide exploration and interpretation. Success in deciphering the island's secrets requires both creative thinking and analytical rigor. This combination reflects a broader truth about human problem-solving. Breakthroughs often emerge when imagination and reason collaborate, when curiosity is guided by method, and when daring is balanced with careful planning. Oak Island is a tangible reminder that the human mind thrives on the challenge of mystery. The island teaches empathy through the stories of those who have dared to explore it. Generations of explorers have faced danger, financial strain, and emotional hardship. Lives have been lost, fortunes squandered, and dreams tested. By witnessing these sacrifices, we are reminded of the human dimension behind every historical endeavor. Oak Island's legacy is not only in the artifacts or tunnels but in the courage, determination, and resilience of the people who have engaged with it. Their stories invite reflection on our own willingness to take risks, to dream, and to confront challenges in pursuit of something greater. History itself is a teacher on Oak Island. The artifacts, construction, and design hint at the knowledge, technology, and cultural interactions of those who came before. Coins, tools, and materials speak of trade, travel, and craftsmanship. Structural features demonstrate advanced engineering and planning. By studying these clues, we gain insights into the past, uncovering not just what people valued but how they thought, organized, and communicated. Oak Island reminds us that history is often layered, complex, and interconnected, and that every artifact, no matter how small, carries a story waiting to be interpreted. Oak Island also challenges our relationship with uncertainty. The Money Pit has resisted complete understanding for centuries, defying expectations and testing the patience of every explorer. In doing so, it teaches a profound lesson, That mystery is not something to be feared but to be embraced. Life, much like Oak Island, often presents questions without immediate answers. By confronting uncertainty with curiosity, resilience, and creativity, we grow as individuals and as a society. The island's refusal to yield its secrets entirely is a reminder that some knowledge is earned gradually, through persistence, insight, and reflection. The emotional dimension of Oak Island is equally instructive. Excitement, hope, frustration, and awe are intertwined with every expedition. The highs of discovery and the lows of setback mirror the human experience itself, reinforcing the value of emotional intelligence, patience, and perspective. Oak Island teaches that the journey often matters more than the destination, that the act of seeking, learning, and engaging with history is as meaningful as uncovering tangible rewards. It is a place where intellect, courage, and emotion converge, creating an experience that resonates across generations. Oak Island also demonstrates the power of collaboration. Modern exploration relies on teams of engineers, historians, divers, and researchers working together, blending expertise to solve complex problems. This mirrors broader truths about human achievement. Breakthroughs often emerge from collective effort, dialogue, and shared knowledge. No single individual has solved the island's mystery alone, and it is likely that the ultimate revelations, when they come, will be the result of cumulative insight, cooperation, and interdisciplinary thinking. The island, in this way, serves as a lesson in humility, teamwork, and the value of diverse perspectives. The enduring allure of Oak Island further teaches that some mysteries are timeless. Each generation approaches the island with new tools, ideas, and perspectives, yet the fundamental challenge remains. Pirates, Templars, explorers, and modern treasure hunters are connected by a shared fascination with the unknown. This continuity reminds us that human curiosity transcends time, culture, and circumstance. Oak Island's story is a testament to the universality of wonder, the appeal of the hidden, and the enduring human desire to uncover what lies just beyond reach. Finally, Oak Island invites reflection on our own lives. What drives us to seek, to explore, to persevere in the face of uncertainty? What mysteries do we chase? And what risks are we willing to take to uncover them? The island story encourages us to consider our ambitions, our curiosity, and our resilience. It reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge and discovery is a defining aspect of the human condition, one that shapes our history, our culture, and our individual journeys. In conclusion, Oak Island is far more than a physical location or a legend of buried treasure. It is a profound lesson in history, human nature, and the enduring power of mystery. It teaches curiosity, ambition, perseverance, imagination, empathy, collaboration, and the value of embracing uncertainty. Its story spans centuries, connecting generations through shared pursuit, wonder, and determination. The treasures of Oak Island may lie hidden beneath the surface, but its greatest gifts are the insights it offers into the human spirit. As we leave the island in our imagination, we are reminded that every mystery, every challenge, and every quest carries lessons beyond what is immediately visible. Oak Island, with all its secrets and enigmas, encourages us to dream, to question, and to persist. It challenges us to look deeper, think critically, and appreciate the interplay between history and human nature. Most importantly, it leaves us with a sense of awe, a recognition that some secrets endure not simply to be found, but to inspire those who seek, think, and wonder. Oak Island stands as a monument to the eternal dance between mystery and discovery, between ambition and humility, between human curiosity and the vast unknown. Its legacy is not merely what may lie buried beneath the surface, but what it teaches us about ourselves: the courage to seek, the patience to endure, and the imagination to see beyond what is immediately visible. In the quiet moments, standing on its shores, one cannot help but ask, what if this secret, when finally revealed, changes how we see history, human ambition, and the power of mystery itself? And perhaps, in that question, lies Oak Island's greatest treasure, the endless invitation to explore, wonder, and reflect.